Happy 4th of July, everyone. I hope you all had a safe and fun Independence Day. There's not going to be a new episode of 100 Days of Mothman this week, but we'll be back next week. In the meantime, enjoy a special Best of replay featuring Steve Ward, Seth Breedlove, and Linda Sigmund. 3 incredible voices from our first 3 episodes. And if this is your first interaction with this podcast, welcome to this summer's limited podcast series, 100 Days of Mothman, brought to you by the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network. All summer long, we're diving deep with eyewitnesses, paranormal researchers, scientists, and filmmakers to explore the mystery, madness, and legacy of the Mothman. I am Bobby, host of the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network, and this is the 4th of July Best Of episode of the 100 Days of Mothman podcast. You can watch the full video on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHEARTRADIO, and several other of your favorite audio apps. Or catch the whole series anytime at Mothman100.com. And as always, this weekend's no different. Be kind. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share. Tell your buddies. It helps me more than you know. Now here's a special 4th of July weekend Best Of replay of the 100 Days of Mothman podcast. The car hit 100 miles an hour, headlights slicing through the dark. It was still behind them, gliding, diving, wings stretched wide, red eyes burning. It wasn't stopping. November 15th, 1966, near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. 2 couples, 1 creature. The Mothman had arrived on the world stage. Welcome to episode 1 of this summer's limited podcast series, 100 Days of Mothman, brought to you by the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network. All summer long, we're diving deep with eyewitnesses, paranormal researchers, scientists, and filmmakers to explore the mystery, madness, and the legacy of Mothman. And we're kicking things off strong with the Steve Ward, Point Pleasant resident, Mothman Museum staffer, and a walking encyclopedia of John Keel, Mothman, and all things high strangeness. In this episode, Steve delivers a fun, fast-paced Mothman 101, packed with history, theories, and how it all connects to the UFOs, cryptids, and the paranormal. I'm Bobby, host of the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network, and this is episode 1 of 100 Days of Mothman. You can watch the full video episodes on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and several other of your favorite audio apps. Or catch the whole series anytime at Mothman100.com. And hey, be kind. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share. It helps me more than you know. Now, no more waiting. Here's Mothman 101 with Steve Ward on episode 1 of 100 Days of Mothman. How'd you gain that Mothman pedigree you've got, that resume?
Well, I don't know. I've been following. Here's my cat. His name is Keel.
Oh, that's
there you go.
That's
perfect.
a good. That is amazing.
Perfect timing. I've been following the Mothman since November of 1966. I was in a junior high in Michigan, and that first major sighting where the 2 couples were chased, the Scarberries and the Mallets, down Route 62 out of the TNT area. By the winged humanoid, it hit the wire services all over the world. So I read about it in Michigan, and this is before Mothman had a proper name. The locals just called it the bird. I had been reading John Keel, and here's some of his articles and so forth, some of his books, and couldn't wait for the Mothman prophecies. It came out about 7 or 8 years after the incidents. I think he tried to get it published around that time. Nobody was interested. Mm-hmm. So years later, his publisher or editor or whatever, or whoever said, it's time to write a book on the Mothman. So he said he got out his tattered briefcase and he had a bunch of notes and material. So he put together a book, and then they cut out half of it, about half of it. Its original title was going to be The Year of the Garuda. He saw kind of a resemblance between what people were reporting, this creature or apparition or whatever, and the Garuda of Hindu mythology. This whatever it was about 6-7 foot tall, roughly humanoid. Some people said it didn't seem like it had a head. Its head was kind of sunken down in its chest. That's where they saw the red glowing eyes, and a 10-foot wingspan. And it would chase cars and scare the hell out of people, but it never hurt anybody. Some people thought it was a harbinger, like a warning, but I don't know. I think harbingers need to step up their game. Don't if this was a foreshadowing that the Silver Bridge was going to collapse 13 months later, he did a bad job of warning people, just chasing cars and so forth. You need a harbinger to be specific and say, hey, this is going to happen. You need to avoid this, but it never seems to.
Yeah, there were like zero clues in the book about Silver Bridge until like the last 20 pages.
Right.
And that was it.
It was really bizarre because people talk a lot about, of course, the Mothman, the UFOs, the Men in Black. There were even some animal mutilations, apparently. There were all kinds of people were experiencing poltergeist phenomena. But there was this other undercurrent going on, the prophecies part of the Mothman prophecies, where, as you know, you just read it, Keel was talking to a lot of people that firmly believed they were in contact with some other intelligence, and he called them silent contactees because they believed what was happening to them. They would get predictions sometimes that would come true, and they had no interest in publicity or convincing people that what was happening to them was real. So it was just a bizarre set of circumstances. I encourage people to read other material by John Keel. The book that came out several years before the Mothman prophecies that really turned my head was Operation Trojan Horse. That came out in 1970. Another book came out in 1970 was originally titled Strange Creatures from Time and Space. It had another great Frank Frazetta painting on the cover. Now, later on, that was in more recent years, it's been re-released in trade paper size as the Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. But I almost encourage people to read that one first because it kind of eases you into the Keelian ideas. That's where he first proposes the idea of window areas, where he was trying to come to grips with why is it these things sort of seem to pop up, again, scare the hell out of people or dazzle people in the sky with UFOs, and then they're gone. The cryptids or whatever they were would leave footprints sometimes, and even close to areas, highly populated areas, and then they're gone. So he hypothesized a sort of a window at maybe a dimensional portal or vortex, or whatever you want to call it. And then, but Trojan Horse is like, it's, Strange Creatures from Time and Space is sort of like high school. And then Trojan Horse is more like an advanced degree in college. That's where and I resisted it at first because in the 60s, I was pretty much an ET guy, very influenced by Jim and Coral Lorenzen. They were the head of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, one of the early organizations that took UFOs seriously. And they wrote great books about encounters with humanoids, the landings, and people seeing actually what you would call close encounters of the third kind, one of Dr. Hynek's classifications. So I was pretty convinced that we were dealing with entities from other planets. And then I read Keel, and he pulled everything together, psychic phenomena, cryptids, UFOs, and so forth, and made a case that these things are tied together. So that was, and then after that, I read another great author is Jacques Vallée. He's still alive, still writing, and he one of his early books was Passport to Magonia, and that's where he pulls together elements of folklore, different traditions, and some modern day UFO experiences. For example, people that had encounters with the fairies, the little people, the elementals, would have missing time and be whisked away to some maybe an underground kingdom or a cavern or something like that. And the more modern day version, the people would have missing time, but they'd be aboard a spacecraft or what have you. Sometimes people said they've been taken underground to some kind of facility. There are many, many parallels there. So those two men, Keel and Vallée, really changed my thinking.
You mentioned the fairies. I had one of the biggest aha moments, to lack of a better term, when someone mentioned that the Fae connection and the Bigfoot connection was like hand in hand. And then Keel mentioned it a ton of times in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, and like the connections with the Searchers. You know, the Men in Black, the Searchers with the
Right.
like Indrid Cole. Like a lot of their in and out interactions were just like the Fae, and it makes you wonder if, like, you know, he compared a lot of the things that happened to like the imagination of the time. Like if something was trending then, the aliens would appear as something that was trending then. And back then in the Middle Ages, the only thing they knew was a fairy was being like a little flying creature, and so that's where they appeared it to him as.
Well, he talked a lot about what he called the reflective factor.
Yeah, that's what it was. I couldn't
Right.
remember. So it's like a tulpa, basically.
Right. Right. It kind of mirrors
Mhm.
the consciousness, the human expectations at the time. You know, kind of uh, following Carl Jung. He wrote the book "Flying Saucers: A Myth of Things Seen in the Sky," and his colleagues thought he was crazy. They couldn't believe that he gave some credibility to these things being perhaps temporarily real. That was what Keel was all about. He thought these things were temporal, and of course he used the term transmogrification, paraphysical, and but and and actually toward the end of the 60s he had completely rejected the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Now, in later years, he kind of backtracked a little bit. There's a great interview. I think it's been republished in one of the anthologies. Can't think of the name of it right now, but he was interviewed by Richard Toronto. Now, Richard Toronto is known for his books on the Shaver mystery, a whole nother show. But he wrote War Over Lemuria. He wrote Shaverology, and he had I guess you'd call it sort of a fanzine that was published off and on for many years called Shavertron. Well, they're actually, those are gathered together in 4 different volumes, and in there he scored a interview with John Keel. And Keel, it was interesting because he said, you know, he actually left the door open for the extraterrestrial idea for some of the experiences, and he did say he believed that there was more than one answer to these things. But one thing that was very interesting. He said that the term, you know, he used the term ultra terrestrial, and that was actually he wanted to get away from extraterrestrial because he didn't know for sure that that's what they were, you know. And so ultra terrestrial is just kind of I guess you'd even call it a literary device to indicate that these things might be. He thought a lot of these things were a natural condition of the planet, and he did say that he borrowed that term from Ivan Sanderson. Ivan Sanderson, the great British naturalist, transplanted from England, living in New Jersey, a friend and colleague of John Keel. I actually saw them on a. I don't know if you kids out there remember UHF channels.
Oh yeah, I'm 40. I definitely remember them.
But my grandparents gave me their old black and white TV when I was a kid, and which had UHF channels on it. And there was a local station in the Detroit area, Channel 50, and they would pull in a lot of syndicated shows from New York City. And one of them was called Alan Burke. And one night he had Ivan Sanderson on talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and John Keel was in the audience, and he came up to the, you know, even back then they had the microphone where the audience member could come up and ask questions or whatever. Well, he had come there with Sanderson, and he had some things to add. So it was pretty cool to see both Sanderson and Keel on the television.
Now, he was the biologist, wasn't he? The zoologist, Sanderson.
Yes. Yep. He had a TV show, I think, on NBC for a while. He wrote some great books. The Invisible Residents and Uninvited Visitors are 2 that I highly recommend.
Cool. Yeah. When I started digging into all this, looking in, I've done documentaries, and I've seen the movie. Obviously, I watched it all through college, and I didn't really know like the layer 2 of it. I knew the surface level stuff that everybody knew, And I started like, let me see if I can get John Keel on the podcast. Like, okay, he's been dead a while. And I started looking around, Ivan Sanderson, like, no, he's dead. But yeah, it is amazing. And like you said, the localized visions, and he even tracked back to, Travis Parker down, or Calvin Parker down in Pascagoula,
Right.
the next state away from me. I'm here in Alabama.
Okay.
But yeah, I was chatting with him kind of on the text before he passed away. But the way that the lighthouse or the bridge keeper didn't see a light when that happened, and the cameras didn't see a light when that happened, when the Pascagoula case happened, really speaks to. I know Keel really probably liked that happened so he could reemphasize what he saw, what he was hypothesizing.
But we're back in the mid
Yeah.
70s. Now, their incident happened in October of 73.
Mhm.
A couple of years later, we had kind of an informal UFO group. I had one earlier in high school where we actually had a name, but this one was, there actually, it was kind of loosely organized. There were a few people that were actually professionals involved.
Mhm.
I was not. I was between jobs at the time. But Lloyd, who was kind of our de facto leader, he was in contact with, was it Menendez, the co-author of Charles Hickson, who wrote his book on Pascagoula.
Mhm.
And he got a hold of a cassette. Now, this has been available now where you can get it online.
Yeah.
You can actually hear Hickson and Parker talking to each other when the sheriff went out of the room. They didn't know they were being recorded. And but we actually had this cassette of it years before it was actually released. So you hear these guys talking, saying, "Did you see that?" And I mean, these guys are freaking out, and you know they're not faking it. You know they had a real experience, and so that was pretty interesting that we had that scoop years before anybody else did.
Yeah, to me, that tape you're talking about is probably one of the best pieces of evidence as far as all things tying together that there is available. That's not just a video of something in the sky,
Right.
But
Whatever happened to them,
they saw it. It was real to them.
they had a real experience.
Calvin came on this radio show I've been listening to for like 30 years. He came on there twice, and they actually did a full episode with him. And so yeah, it's back and forth. I feel like I know him as much as he's been on there. I really did like how Keel, he put that out there. I didn't think about it being in the same time period, and then he started describing it. Holy crap! It's really tying together.
Yeah, there was a wave of landings, humanoid reports in the fall of 1973, and when I went to the MUFON symposium in 1976. This was actually 10 years after the swamp gas fiasco. If you know your history, 1966,
Yep.
Dr. Hynek was dispatched from Blue Book when there were a wave of UFO sightings, and he suggested that on air, live on air, that possibly some of them might be due to swamp gas, which was probably ridiculous, but he had to straddle the fence. He was still tied to the Air Force. And so that was that was pretty. That made a big splash. Well, 10 years later, he was at this symposium, and the name of his talk was "Swamp Gas Plus 10 and Counting." And so he talked about those days, 10 years before, and some of the mistakes he made. He had separated from Blue Book some time before, and he had started the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois. And so it was. I even have that recorded somewhere. So that was really, really cool to see him. Now, at the same place was another guy named Dr. David Webb. He wrote a book that was published by the Center for UFO Studies called 1973 Year of the Humanoids. And he documents a whole series of humanoid encounters during that time period. And I got a chance to talk to him. He was a Keel fan, by the way. So, and a lot of, when I was at the symposium, I was like one of these guys that had just gotten religion. I couldn't shut up about John Keel and the paraphysical, the paranormal aspects. And some of these people were looking at me like I was an insurance salesman and it was 11 o'clock and they wanted me to get out of the house. So
hmm Yeah, Keel was he the first one that suggested that ultra dimensional aspect of it?
no, I think you go back, you can find there was a guy named Meade Lane
Hmm
from Borderland Science Research, and they used to publish a magazine called Round Robin. So there were others that approached the dimensional aspect, but he's the one that really pulled all these things together. People ask me, well, what was the Mothman? And I would say, well, if you Keel talked to a little over 100 people that year
hmm
between December. He didn't get down there till December '66, and then December '67 was when the bridge collapsed. Um, he the description of whatever this was generally the same. 6,
hmm
7 foot tall, again, 10-foot wingspan, red glowing eyes. And well, some people just saw a big bird,
hmm
and a big ugly bird. Tom Urey saw essentially a thunderbird,
hmm
which may or may not be connected. And I talked to him. He's no longer with us, but at a Mothman festival several years ago, I talked to him. He believed originally that the others that saw the Mothman saw what he did, but due to the freak out factor, they added details. But then he was traveling to Katanning, Pennsylvania in 2002. That's where they filmed part of the Mothman prophecies.
hmm
They substituted Katanning for Point Pleasant. And he was there going out there with Marcella Bennett. Now, Marcella Bennett saw this thing just a few days after the first sighting. She
hmm
and her brother went out to a friend of theirs that lived in the TNT area. Now, the TNT area was where they made explosives during World War II. It's the McClintock Wildlife Area, but it's had the nickname of TNT forever, even though the most of the structures were taken down. There's still some remnants out there, but they went out there to tap on the window and maybe freak out their friends. The parents weren't there. The kids were there.
hmm
She's walking back with her infant child to the car, and her brother's trying to get her attention because there's some kind of a strange light up in the sky, and she just does not interested. And then this thing, the Mothman, whatever it was, rises up off the ground, and she collapses. She actually dropped her infant child. Turned out the child was okay, but it took her a while to recover and pick up her child. They ran back to the house. They ran in the house, and whatever this thing was walking back and forth across the porch. So, a lot of people had close experiences, but the thing is that it didn't always flap its wings when it took off. It would take
hmm
off straight up like a helicopter sometimes. Yeah, a lot of people, and there was a Swedish researcher named Franzen that had corresponded with Keel, and he had helped Keel with some of the phantom airplanes that were seen in Sweden in the 30s with some of that information. Well, he came a year or two behind Keel, and they both talked to a lot of people that had seen this thing and then had an outbreak of poltergeist phenomena afterwards.
hmm
How do you reconcile that? And then there's another one. If you look at Seth Breedlove's first Mothman documentary, The Mothman of Point Pleasant,
Yeah,
the Reverend, oh, come on, don't fail me, Gray, his wife wrote a book called The Thing, talking about their experience. Well, they saw this thing manifest in their bedroom. And this is right when the Mothman stuff started. So they didn't see the newspapers. And they were leaving the next day as missionaries to go to a far off country, I forget where. But it was several years they came back. And then they saw the old newspapers and they thought, my God, that's what actually manifested in our bedroom. And you can see him talk about it on that
hmm
documentary. So, you have all these, if you try to put it in a physical category, like some kind of a unknown creature, just not discovered,
hmm
that doesn't work. A purely an apparition. It seemed like it left footprints. It seemed like it had some kind of. Keel saw these odd-looking footprints around the TNT area, around the Old North Power Plant. So there are just so many contradictions. And was it paraphysical? I guess, but I'm not sure that even makes sense. So I honestly don't know what it was. It's almost like it was some kind of an elemental. But don't ask me what an elemental is, because I don't know if I can give you a proper definition.
Yeah, earth spirit, something that just appears. Could be in any shape. It's like a super cryptid.
Right. And it did seem to take other shapes. I mean, if it was the same thing. And then, of course, people have seen all kinds of winged creatures or winged apparitions. There was the Houston Batman, but it almost looked like that guy was wearing a suit. There was the Wisconsin Man Bat, I think, in the 90s. Linda Godfrey covered that. This big, ugly bat-like thing brushed against the window of the car a man and his son were in. When they got home, they were very, very ill. It didn't look like the Mothman. But a lot of people want to label these things as the Mothman or a manifestation of the Mothman. And perhaps, if Keel was onto something, perhaps these things are coming from the same source, but just manifesting differently. I don't know. It's just, it's very, very hard to pin down.
You hear them talk. You hear them. People want to call it a Mothman or the Mothman. Like, it's a Mothman. It's got the Chicago one. They call him the Chicago Mothman.
Well, some of those sightings are a little dubious, I think. There's a great researcher named Alison Jornlin. She went and she investigated a lot of those and found there were some problems with some of them. When somebody makes up a story, they don't get all the details right about the surroundings and so forth. She found some problems with there's several problems with that. I kind of personally I have ignored the Chicago Mothman stuff because some of it may be legitimate. A lot of it I think is not, and it's just kind of a minefield.
That's cool. I actually had her on here.
Oh, good, because she was on my podcast, The High Strangeness Factor, a few years ago, and actually I was able to get her. Jeff Wamsley runs the Mothman Festival, and I have his ear, and occasionally I've been able to recommend a speaker. I want people to know he's his own man. I can't. If you come to me, I can't guarantee you're gonna. I can get you in as a speaker, but I was able to get Allison in on the last speaker on Sunday one year, and she was excellent. So, and she was also, like I say, on my podcast. I see her occasionally when I go to the Van Meter Visitor Festival, and Van Meter is a little town west of Des Moines, and there was a wing, so almost like more like a pterodactyl kind of a creature, seen with bizarre properties, seen in 1903 for about a week in that area.
Seems to be a lot of the pterodactyl pterosaurs going around, and it speaks to the only one person can see the thing, because if there were a breeding population of pterosaurs, a biologist and an ornithologist would have horned in on them by now.
I would think so, something that big. And even some of the claims of the Thunderbirds, it's but the Van Meter Visitor had a kind of a horn on its beak, and it seemed to have some kind of a light on its beak. It also gave off some kind of a vapor, fill in your own joke there, where people would have missing time. So you have this entity, which is not a leprechaun or a apparently a humanoid from a spaceship, but you still have the missing time problem. And you'll find Linda Sigmund had the same situation when she said her encounter. She and her boyfriend both had missing time.
Yeah, that missing time thing that's one of the things that brings it to the next level of being evil, or maybe you don't know what the intentions could be. Like, why miss time? What's the purpose of it? And John Keel mentioned that it was to have the person deliver a certain package across the country, and so it would always be linked to a human when there was evidence sought.
Right. He thought that in some cases people were being manipulated to destroy or present evidence or whatever. And who knows? But I talked to a lady a few years ago that had a missing time experience. She and her husband, this is near Londonderry, New Hampshire. They were on the porch early one morning, still dark, and they're near an airport, and they're very familiar with the lights, the aircraft to go over. Well, there was this one set of lights coming toward them. They couldn't make heads or tails of it. Then all of a sudden, They're not standing next to each other anymore on the porch. They're kind of separated. She's looking. She's got her hands up in the air, and they look up and they see this giant black triangle just brushing the tops of the trees on their property, and then it passes off. And then, like a lot of people that have these experiences, at the moment it did not register. They just turned around and went back to bed. So later on, she realized that they were missing a little over a half hour, and then she remembered the whatever that was, the black triangle. So she was on a kind of a quest to have a therapist recapture those memories, and it took her a while, but she had contacted me before she made that breakthrough, and because I am have followed John Keel. John Keel had a kind of a catchphrase. It was, ask the contactee what they had for breakfast. And what he meant was, ask the experiencer what he or she, all about them, find out all about their past life, because he found that people that had these experiences, so a cryptid or an abduction experience, had probably had other experiences that they weren't even aware of all their life. And so, long story short, I found out that both her sons were experiencing orb phenomena, some in the house, some outside the house. They were having typical haunting phenomena, electrical problems. She saw a shadow person. And then I know that a lot of times people that have these experiences have also seen some kind of a cryptid or unknown animal. So I asked her, I said, look, this is going to sound crazy maybe, but have you ever seen anything like a Bigfoot or some kind of a animal you couldn't identify? And she said, well, no. And then she said, oh, wait a minute. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law saw something near the property, and this thing was seen more than once. And what it was, it looked like a black panther, but standing on two legs. So the point being that if I was still stuck in the 1960s with E.T., I never would have known about, and if it wasn't for people like John Keel, and also another great person we lost a few years ago, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She's the one that made connections between shadow people and people that were having abduction experiences. But anyway, if it wasn't for people like that, I would not have known to ask these questions, and all this information would have just been below the surface and maybe never come up.
It seems odd that particular tie-in between the paranormal and the extraterrestrial and the cryptids made like a surface in like the 70s and 60s. It just disappeared until about 10 years ago. Like no one ever talked about it until maybe 5 years ago. It hasn't been that long. But it's just now getting really investigated once more. That's all anybody talks about now.
Cryptids?
Yeah, the cryptids with the paranormal and the UFOs all being the same phenomenon.
Well, a lot of people just still resist the high strangeness aspects in cryptids, and I think that it may, Keel, when you go back to Strange Creatures from Time and Space, he talked about Type A and Type B cryptids. He thought that while some were definitely paraphysical and temporal, he thought that there were some that were probably just unknown animals, and he gave the example of some of the perhaps water monsters and even the Yeti. Now that was back in 1970. He may have changed his mind, but I have been following the works of F.W. Holliday, Chet Holliday, and he's written a series of books. Another great, no longer with us, but he wrote a series of books about Loch Ness, which convinced me that Nessie isn't just an unknown giant slug or plesiosaur. That there's something truly bizarre about the manifestations of that, whatever it is, and everything else, the UFOs and so forth that surround the loch.
Also, he thinks that Nessie has some kind of otherworldly or the paranormal-ish aspect to it.
Well, his first book was called The Great Orm, O-R-M, of Loch Ness, and orm is just an ancient word for worm. And when he actually saw it a couple times himself, he said he rejected the plesiosaur idea, but he thought it was sort of an oversized mollusk of some type. And his candidate was the let me get the Tully. Oh God, I can't even. Garium. It's some kind of an old kind of a sea slug. The problem is it's been extinct for, I think, millions of years and didn't get that big. But that was kind of the idea. He thought it was just some kind of an oversized slug. And then in his next book called The Dragon and the Disc, and it's got other names, it came over here originally as Creatures from the Inner Sphere. Um, he, uh, he recognized the elusiveness of this creature. Uh, the camera hoodoo. It would be kind of on the surface. You bring the camera up, and it would submerge, or the camera would jam. That's happened with Bigfoot reports as well. But and also he to kind of support that, he investigated some of the creatures, some of the same types of water monsters, for lack of a better word, in Ireland, and sometimes they called them horse eels over there rather than the water horse. And some of these things were seen by credible people, families, dogs would react to it, but they would be in lakes that were maybe a quarter of a mile wide and 30 feet deep. So, I mean, there was even some controversy that a colony of Nessies would eat up all the fish in Loch Ness. Well, heck, in one of these small lakes, how would a beast survive? Where all the fish would be gone in no time. So there were many problems with Nessie as just a straight flesh and blood creature. Now, I mean, a champ may be something. Champ's in a much bigger body of water. It could be a whole different ball game. But there was an incident. Foyers is about halfway down the loch, and there was a Swedish researcher, Jan Sundberg, who was investigating Nessie, and he got twisted around. He was in a clearing near Foyers, and he sees this craft or whatever. At first, he thinks it's some kind of submersible because it's not far from the water. Then he sees these three guys in some kind of a suit, and he thinks at first they're diving suits. And he takes a closer look, and he thinks, no, there's something wrong about this. And they get in this thing, and they take off at a 45-degree angle. Halliday himself saw UFOs a couple times. And then there was the bizarre. They did an exorcism of Nessie. There was an Anglican priest named Dr. Donald Olmond that wrote in his book that he thought Nessie was not a flesh and blood creature, and so that got Halliday's attention. So he contacted him. Now Olmond had seen these things, these water beasts, a couple times. He saw one in a loch in Scotland. And a Norwegian sea captain said, I'll show you where they are. And he took him to a fjord called the Fjord of Trolls. And on the ship, a couple of these things, they see the humps coming toward them. And Omid is getting nervous. And the captain said, don't worry, they never hit us. And they diverted and submerged. Omid began to believe that they were evil. And I'm not quite sure why. This sea captain, Norwegian captain, believed they were, but they did and Halliday went along with this. He was kind of an agnostic, but they went to the four corners of the loch. Oman did his exorcism, and then they went out in a boat into the middle and did another ritual. And even the BBC covered this for a little bit. And so they came back. They borrowed a boat from the Careys. Mr. Carey had been an RAF pilot, and so and Halliday was exhausted. So I don't know what they triggered, but Mrs. Carey was very psychic, and she told Halliday wanted to go to that spot where Sundberg had seen the craft. She said you should not do that because she said you might be abducted. So I don't know about that, but anyway, so they're sitting there in the front room, and all of a sudden they hear this thundering roar, and they look outside, and there's this like a small tornado, a funnel spinning around, and Mrs. Carey sees a thin beam of light hit Halliday in the forehead, right where the holy water was placed during the ritual. But Mr. Carey, who's got their back to him, he's mixing a drink. he hears and sees nothing. So maybe we don't know how many drinks he had. Maybe that was maybe he was insulated from that, and then that was it. And then so I mean, what a bizarre experience. Presumably the ritual triggered something. I don't know. The next morning, Holiday's up early, and he's kind of gazing out the lot, and he looks over toward the road, and he sees a man in black standing there, and it's just standing there solid. It's almost like there's no detail on it. These I got the impression. These two-dimensional blackboards you see along the road, whether they're or
the cowboy.
Yeah, right. So he's does the double take. He walks over to it. He's going to kind of brush against it, pretend like he tripped or something like that to see if it's real. And he hears a pop, and it's gone. A year later, almost to the day, he has a heart attack near that same spot, and he realizes that as they're carrying him on the stretcher, that's where he saw this apparition. So I don't know what to make of all that, but it suggests that perhaps Nessie isn't just an unknown water creature. Maybe there's something else quite bizarre there. But anyway, Holiday's work is very interesting. His third book, which Colin Wilson published after his death, after Holiday's death, called The Goblin Universe. And that's fascinating. That's where another one where Holiday tried to pull everything together. The introduction by Wilson is worth the price of the book. So these things are, I mean, as you know, once you move into this realm, you never know where it's going to lead.
It is a rabbit hole upon rabbit hole.
Yes.
I had no idea there was that kind of aspect of the Nessie thing. Now you make
a lot of people would just ignore that and disagree. But I think there's something really really bizarre there.
You talk to enough people, it's hard to disagree with it. Even though it's like anecdotal for the most part, like people say the same stuff. I've seen some of the stuff in John Keel's book that people have told me on this podcast about. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, he was way ahead of his time.
I saw a shadow dude at a window area down here in Alabama. Like a year ago. Well, maybe less than a year ago. And they're like, you just got to embrace the woo, man. I'm like, okay. And I thought, when it's getting kind of dusky, dark outside, and your eyes kind of play tricks, I thought it was just like my eyes like forming, but it was like a thing. Not like a straight up person, but like a blob.
I have been with people in the TNT area where they have claimed to have seen some kind of a shadow person. Now, I didn't see him, but I don't really experience much of anything.
Yeah, me neither. That's why whenever I say it, I'm just like, this is like the only thing I've got. Besides synchronicities and angel numbers, I'm real big on those because for some reason I'm open to them. I don't know why. But there was that TNT sighting where, John Keel was inside the building himself with his flashlight. And like the big metal clang and what's her name screamed, but he didn't hear a thing.
Right.
And I was like, what does that mean? Like this guy's like, he would have heard that. That would sound like the world ending.
That metal clang thing is something that shows up a lot. And even like people hearing like a door slam on a car and there's no car around there. So just really, really odd. The so-called zone of fear that he encountered, which was pretty interesting. Now,
one at night, he was walking in and out of it.
Right. He thought it was some kind of he didn't say microwave, some kind of
infrasound or something.
Yeah, something like that. But interesting because Colin Wilson addresses that in his book Mysteries. Another book I recommend. Now, Mysteries is a huge book. I've not read the whole thing, but each chapter is gigantic, and you can read each chapter by itself. There's a fascinating chapter about Lethbridge, T.C. Lethbridge, who was a dowser. It just I'll leave it there. It's just fascinating. But there's a chapter called something like Mysteries of Time and Space, where he compares Keel's research, Holiday, the Nessie guy, Lethbridge, and some others, and brings them all together. Well, he addresses that zone of fear, and he thinks that Keel was wrong, that it wasn't some kind of a artificial, not microwave or whatever. He thought it was. He called it a ghoul, And now that definition, as far as I know, comes from Lethbridge, the dowser. A ghost, obviously, is an apparition, but the ghoul is used as a term when you enter an area or a house. Sometimes you have that feeling, a negative feeling or feeling of dread. That's a ghoul. So that's what he thought Keel experienced was some kind of a ghoul or negative energy, perhaps connected to the Mothman sighting. I don't know, but a couple friends of mine, when Keel came to Point Pleasant, when they unveiled the Mothman statue right there in the heart of downtown Point Pleasant, they took him to lunch, and he told them all kinds of great stories. And they asked him if he knew where that was, and he said no. And I can understand that because I was down there in 1977, and back then you could just drive around the TNT area. And I had no idea where I was going, but I had read the book, and I was just fast. I went to the Old North Power Plant, which was still standing, but I drove around the area. But when I came back in 2006 for the first Mothman Festival, I have no idea where I was driving. So I can understand why Keel wouldn't be able to find that particular spot.
Yeah, especially if it's in like a management area like it is for the wildlife. Those have roads that intertwined and loop-de-loop and connect and back and forth. You don't know where you're at. You just go to the end of one and find the main one when you're done.
Yeah, there are a bunch of roads in the area, and there are if you go north on Route 62, make a right or go east on Potter's Creek, and you count down the igloo roads to your right. The seventh one is the one that they take the tours to. You can actually the Mothman Museum will give you directions on how to get there. You can park there, and you can actually walk into some of the old bunkers. There's 100 of these concrete igloos or bunkers where they stored the explosives during World War II. Most of them are not accessible, but there are a few that are accessible on that road that you can check out.
Can you walk to where the original Scarberry sighting was, or get to that?
Yeah, yes. There's if you the road before that is the Fairgrounds Road, and you go east on there. You'll come up and you'll come to a point where on your right is the Farm Museum, on your left is the Fairgrounds. Well, there's a dirt road just before the Fairgrounds, and you can make a left on that, and you go up. Now there's nothing there. There's just an open space where the Old North Power Plant stood. But you can park on that road. Jeff Wamsley, a few years before she passed, he took her out there, and he said, "Okay, Linda, now tell me everything that happened." And the first thing that happened was the two couples were in the car. They were coming south on that dirt road by the Old North Power Plant. And Linda saw somebody in the road, which she thought was somebody in the road. She said, "What's that man doing there in the middle of the road?" Well, that man's spread his wings by 10 feet. So there was something was up, and it shuffled off toward the Old North Power Plant. They noticed the red glowing eyes, and they got the hell out of there. And then they were chased into town.
Doing 100 miles an hour.
Yes. And I had a chance to talk to Roger Scarberry, who was driving the car. He had been quiet for about half a century. Steve and Mary Mallett, after they gave their initial interviews, kept quiet. They haven't talked to anybody. I talked to Linda Scarberry several times before she passed. Jeff Wamsley was her paper boy, and they lived on the same street. And she would, starting in about 2006, she would come down to the festival and talk to people about her sighting. Well, just in the last few months, Roger Scarberry contacted Jeff Wamsley, and they made the initial contact, and they were going to do the interview the next day. And Jeff just said, "Roger, just tell me, did it really happen?" And he said, "It scared the hell out of us." Now, I was in on part of that interview, not the whole thing. It's going to be in Jeff's third book, which I don't know when it's going to be out. He's got two books. So one is called Mothman, The Facts Behind the Legend, and the other one is called Mothman Behind the Red Eyes. So anyway, I heard part of Roger's interview, and his son was there, and his son reiterated. He said his his dad just doesn't make up stuff,
Hmm.
So there was a real experience there. So it was good. And I think there's another individual. I won't give the name, but somebody mentioned in the Mothman prophecies that is coming forward or may have already come forward to give Jeff an interview. So a few of the original experiencers are coming forward that have been quiet for about half a century.
Yeah, that seems like kind of a random thing to make up anyway, because who would have thought it wasn't like now if you made it up you'd have something to base it off of.
Right. I mean, there's no reality show. You're just known thought of it as a loon, and they were harassed. Linda Scarberry was harassed.
I bet.
Merle Partridge, that he lost his dog Bandit when he saw some strange lights.
Hmm.
It was a couple days before the first Mothman sighting,
The dog
and
got abducted.
they would call him and harass him on the phone and make fun of him. So yeah, it was and I talked to a lady, maybe it was last year, a local, and she said, you just if you had an experience like that, you just kept your mouth shut back then,
Hmm.
because people just would not accept it.
Now here's a thought you just made me remember. Were they trying to associate the dog at the Scarberry mallet sighting to Bandit? Is that
I think some were, but it's like an hour and a half away. I don't
yeah.
think that makes sense to me. But
Yeah, I was just asking because they mentioned it like you mentioned it in your book, and it came from John Keel's book, but like they mentioned it really hard, like dog bandit, like it happened like a week before.
right.
I don't
So
know.
I doubt that. I don't know what to make about Mothman.
It just seemed so specific. And we saw a dog. How did you know that you saw a dog? That's the only part of the giant Mothman doesn't get me. It's why did you note the dog in your story? Must have been a big dog.
Well, there was another dog that was killed
Hmm.
across the river, kind of on the north end of Gallipolis, is Georges Creek Road, and apparently Keel mentions that in one of his articles. But apparently there was a lot of UFOs on that road back in those days. But there was a crop circle, like a landing, and a dog was crushed by. It's gruesome, but by whatever this was that came down, that wasn't really heavily publicized. So I don't know what to make of that, but I'm thinking
Like something landed on it.
aliens need to be kinder to our animals.
Seems to be a trend. Sucking them dry. Bloodmobile.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, that was bizarre. And then Keel said he actually called up I don't know, some the company or whatever, and asked if they'd had other incidents like that, and he got hung up on.
I can just picture like Life South Blood with their giant bloodmobile, because now it's like a full on bus.
Yeah,
So try to get that.
that's a creepy story. There's in some of there's like several anthologies that have been published
Mhm.
with Keel's articles from different magazines over the last several decades and before his death, and in there he talks about some of those kinds of incidents.
Now, did you move to Point Pleasant because of this, or was it just haphazard for a
Yeah,
job?
well, I was I got a divorce and I had to live somewhere,
Yep, makes
and
sense.
I never seriously thought about moving to a place that was kind of my vacation spot. I mean, I was down there in '77. 29 years later, I went to my first Mothman festival, and it had been coming ever since. And since early on, I was a happy-go-lucky guy, going to the festival, getting the fever, buying everything with Mothman stamped on it,
Yep.
T-shirts, books, trinkets, whatever. But then I became slowly absorbed. I do the emceeing. I speak there. I go into the TNT area before the TNT hayride on Saturday night to set up some creepy crawlies with red and light up their eyes and so forth. My buddies fly the Mothman that's hanging up in the Mothman Museum. But so anyway, I become very much a part of the festival. So yeah, it was just the thought came to me. Well, maybe I could find a. I wasn't having any luck finding apartments where I was living, and they were just too expensive. I had so many books that I needed a 3-bedroom apartment at least, but I couldn't afford that. So anyway, I've got this. Jeff Wansley told me about this little house here for sale. I'm living right on the same road that the Scarberries and the Mallets were chased by the Mothman. So that's pretty cool. But and I have the 2 men in a truck that moved me down here. Boy, they worked their tails off. I mean, they were really good. But one of them said that I had more books in his hometown library. So there you go.
You're like that old man on the Twilight Zone.
Exactly. Yes.
All this time to read.
Yes.
Sit on your glasses. It isn't fair. Yeah, that's cool though. I wonder just how intrinsic. I just wondered how dug in you were to the area. Sounds pretty dug in.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, I could literally walk to work if I wanted to. I work at the Mothman Museum on Saturdays, greeting people and answering questions. And the Mothman statue is right nearby. So if people want their whole family in the picture, I can do that. They don't have to send the kid out they don't like to take the picture. You know, I can get everybody. And then of course, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I think we're going up there because I'm going to wrap this series up in September and kind of do like a on the side documentary in Point Pleasant. Haven't decided yet.
During the festival?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. What you want to do is you want to get to the only thing that costs a few bucks. Now, Saturday and Sunday we have speakers all day, and they sometimes they show documentaries or whatever down by the amphitheater. They set up something there, but what you want to do is stand in line, get your ticket Saturday morning. This goes for everybody for the TNT hayride on Saturday night. We take people to the Farm Museum, which is part of the general area of the TNT area. We have 3 tractors, 3 carts. 2 carts are like proper hay rides with bales of hay. They usually give me the old man cart with the nice, comfortable seats. Mm-hmm. And like I say, I go in ahead of time, set up a few things like giant spiders with glowing eyes or whatever, and cobble together a few creatures. And but the real the area itself is kind of like the star. You don't really need anything out there. And so we take people in. The men in black try to turn you away. There's 3 guys there with bullhorns. They're telling you it's a restricted area and all that stuff. Yeah, they're a riot. And
they're pointy fingers.
Yeah. And then they it's just a blast of the back and forth with people on the cart and of course the John and Tim Frick, they take the Mothman, they hide behind the old acid plant, and they run a wire, and they've got this ingenious low-tech hand crank delivery system to fly the Mothman down, and then they crank him back for the next ride, and they light up his eyes with battery power, and they blast a sound effect. I can't say where they got it from because it's probably copyrighted, and I don't want them to be wearing ankle bracelets or go to prison. So anyway, there's this great howl that is accompanied, and then I shouldn't tell people this, but I'm going to. There's a few things you'll see, giant spiders and that kind of thing, kind of swinging in the breeze, and then toward the end, just when you think it's safe, there's a couple guys in ghillie suits that'll jump up and scare the hell out of you. Well, it is hard to find a place to stay. There are several chain hotels, motels across the river. The Low Hotel is shut down now. It's been sold. There was some fire violations, I think, but they shut it down. But anyway, the Low was extremely expensive. You'd have to remortgage your house to afford it, I think, for a festival. But some people drive a good half hour, even an hour, to find a place to stay. So there are wheels in motion to change that. But maybe in the next few years there'll be places that are a lot closer and more places for people to stay. But it is an absolute blast.
I know they recommend like Huntington and Charleston, an hour away, 30 miles away.
That's not too far.
That's what I was looking at it. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to go down. Like, I shift gears a little bit. I was going to go back to the predictions. You know that you had the Pope, and
Right.
A few years later he got attacked by a knife. But the one thing I was looking at, he was disappointed. John Keel, we're talking about. When I say he, I don't mean that's what I'm talking about. But that's more for the listeners. But he said, the explosion. It was all about the explosion. Even in Richard Gere movie, like he ruined his reputation because of the explosion. But then, like you look back, and it wasn't even in the main book. It was in your book talking about the what was it? The Union Barge Line explosion, and then the
Oh, I
Mason.
think that was probably Mark. Probably wrote that one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. You two split. You two split time on that one.
right.
And the jailhouse explosion of Mason County. Like
Right.
I wonder, and that was in the Union Barge is in 53, the Mason jailhouse in 76. I wonder if one of those wasn't something they were there because they were be off by a few years. I mean, that was one of the points he made,
Right.
and he never went back. Well, obviously he finished the book, but he never went back and like, hey, maybe that's what it meant. It was on the Ohio River, both of them.
Right. Yeah. Who knows what was going on there?
That happens a lot with the synchronicities and angel number signs you get. Like you'll think you'll have a date, and then like 6 weeks will go by, and then it'll happen. It's almost like they're throwing darts at the wall, trying to make the synchronicities occur.
Mm.
Or the predictions, not the synchronicities.
Well, I talked to I mentioned I think in the book during the 50-year remembrance ceremony of the bridge collapse in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I met Bill Edmondson, who was driving across the bridge when it collapsed. And of course, people that have seen the movie, Richard Gere has all kinds of time to warn people off the bridge. When in fact it was people have said it was like 30 to 40 seconds that the whole bridge went down, starting from the Ohio side? I can't remember.
He said
now.
Ohio side to the West Virginia side.
Oh, okay. Like a series of dominoes, and he went into the water. He was forced through the passenger window, right arm first. His right arm became useless. The currents pulled him up, and he actually his pants were dragging behind him, because as people know, sometimes gentlemen will loosen their breeches a little bit to be more comfortable driving. But when he hit the water, they were dragging behind him, and the reason they didn't come off is because of those 1960s pant cuffs. So that all sounds funny at first, but so when the current started picking him up, something caught his pants, debris from the bridge or something, and started to pull him back under. So he was able to kick himself loose. He came to the surface. He clung on to some of the material that he had been hauling that was floating on the surface. There was a slit in it. He could put his left arm through. And a tugboat captain fortunately saw him surface, and he aimed the tug to stop his flow downriver, and they pulled him up out of the water. And of course, they got him right to the hospital as quickly as possible. So, and he was 88 when I met him. He was there with his family up from North Carolina to pay his respects, and wondering why him? Why did he survive? And he was, which means he was 38 when he was crossing the bridge. And the last thing he told me was, he said 5 years later, he was in a horrible accident where he was okay, but he was trapped in the cab of the truck he was driving. And he swore that if he got out of it this time, he would never drive a truck again. And he never did.
I bet he didn't want to go. I bet he couldn't even look at a Peterbilt. Can you imagine? Was he the one that broke his spine? Who's the guy that broke his back?
No, I can't remember. That was somebody.
It was another truck driver, I believe, wasn't it?
Right.
He's the one that was the one that lost like 3 passengers that died.
Yeah,
his co-driver.
But to the town credit, they mobilized immediately. I mean, they sent boats out. They did whatever they could to rescue anybody out of those cold waters.
It was like inside of a minute, people were being rescued.
Right.
And I'm assuming, I don't know anything about the place, I'm assuming if it's like any other boat town, people are work on the water, and so it wouldn't be anything just to fire it up and go right there.
There are always barges going
Mm-hmm.
through, and yeah, a lot of boat traffic.
Yeah, anytime it's about like being like at the beach in the little harbors. There's always somebody on a boat.
So it was, it was just an amazing tragedy, and the ironically, it was the exactly 13 months to the day that the Scarberries and Mallets at that first sighting that the bridge collapsed. But just another aside,
Mm-hmm.
in what was it, 1904, the Elk River Bridge collapsed. Now the Elk River is up north of there, and does is all part of that system. Well, they had a bridge collapse. Much, I mean, there was loss of life, but not nearly as bad. But it's interesting that the
Mm-hmm.
collapse was on December 15th. Now that has to be a coincidence, but here you have these two bridge collapse tragedies.
The
Uh,
1904 one was too.
what's that?
The 1904 one was too.
Yeah. 1904
Oh
was
gosh,
December 15th. Actually, John Frick uncovered that in going through the newspaper. He's one of
Jesus.
the guys that fly the Mothman during the festival.
Was there any? I guess was there any like reports of high strangeness during that time, or was it even
Well,
any people around?
afterwards, there's a book by James Jones Gay, I think,
Mm-hmm.
called Haunted Valley, and in there he talks about sightings of some kind of a winged creature. But it's after several years after that, around World War I. He said that they had about a 12-foot wingspan. They say they saw them from a distance, but human-like heads, kind of a red plumage, and they were supposedly seen in it was around the Elk River, and they were seen, and it says that people would keep their children inside when these sightings took place. So, and that's about all we have on that. There's not much to report on that, but that was several years after
Mm-hmm.
that ridge collapse. So you can't really say that there's a connection. I don't think.
Do you put any stock in the curse of cornstalk being something like that?
No, they Denny Bellamy, who runs
Mm-hmm.
the tourist bureau, I guess it's called. He's worked with Jeff Walmsley and over the years in getting a lot of these documentaries taken care of, and he's been instrumental in promoting the Mothman and the good work that the Walmsleys have been doing. And they some years ago, not too long ago, they were tearing down an old schoolhouse, and there was a kind of a false wall. They opened it up, and there was a closet full of books and stuff that had been covered up. Well, in there they found a play, I think from maybe the 1920s. I'm not sure, but it dramatized Chief Cornstalk and the curse. I suspect there was no curse. Uh, it's a natural thing to assume that there was a curse, and if anybody had a right to hurl a curse, it was Chief Cornstalk. He was a peacemaker, and he was trying to bring both sides together, and he was betrayed and murdered. So if anybody had a right to hurl a curse, he did. But anyway, I really don't think he did, and it doesn't really would not explain the high strangeness aspects. I mean, look, we've got the Skinwalker Ranch, we've got Marley Woods, we've got the Bridgewater Triangle, on and on. We have these high strangeness areas. I don't believe they were all triggered by some kind of a curse.
Yeah, it has merit until you dive into it at all. The cornstalk thing does like, oh, it totally explains it. Indian burial ground happens all the time. Then you got like what the searchers and the Men in Black, like what the
Right.
and like, that's a very intricate curse.
Have you talked to Linda Sigmund yet?
I haven't. She's coming in. I think March 2nd, like a month from now.
Okay. She her sighting is pretty spectacular, and with missing time and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely ask her. She'll tell you, I'm sure. The early that December that the bridge collapsed, she had an encounter. She saw some of the classic Men in Black with the kind of unhealthy skin
Mm-hmm.
and the sunglasses at night and the fedora and the dark suit. So and she didn't know what the heck to think of it. They said that people were saying, "Oh, that's just government," but she didn't click until a few years later. She read John Keel's book and then put it together. But anyway, that's an important part of her story
Mm-hmm.
is about the Men in Black.
That was the freakiest part of the book, as far as I was concerned.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like, the rest of it was just interesting. He saw UFOs, and when at the end of it, the bridge and yada yada yada. But when the Men in Black came in, I was like, this is the scariest crap, and it's not even in the movie. Like, what? Why would you
Well,
leave that out?
well, I'm sure they didn't do it because prior to that, there were two really silly movies about the Men in Black.
Oh,
So that I
really?
think that if they had done it, the way it was portrayed in the book, there would have been comparisons made. Now,
Yeah,
I had a
it was
chance
like
to
5 years before that.
right. I had a chance to talk to Richard Haddam, who wrote the screenplay. He was at one of Seth Breedlove's events in
Mm-hmm.
Canton, Ohio, and a great guy, a fascinating guy. And he was told, to downplay the UFO aspect and to focus more on the Mothman. I mean, he had certain directions, things he had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he did not know, there's a great book by Brent Raines called John Keel, The Man, the Myths, and the Ongoing Mysteries. And Brent Raines never met John Keel, but he spoke to him on the phone often, and they corresponded. And he was talking about John Keel's literary agent, and I can't think of her name right now, but she talked about when John Keel read Richard Haddam's screenplay. She said he was laughing. He was so happy. He said, they've updated it. They've got me married and so forth. But finally, we've got a screenplay that has captured some of the basic ideas of the book. I think that prior to that, he was getting screenplays where they were just turning Mothman into a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And so Richard Haddam didn't know this, so I was able to tell him how thrilled Keel was with his screenplay. So that was very cool that I could pass on that information to Richard Haddam.
Yeah, I think that having read the book, I don't think there was be a different way to. I mean, sure, you could do it like a little like reports, like a documentary, but making it a story. It wasn't like a story that happened.
Right.
It wasn't like you got the police lady. She was Mary Hire. I mean, obviously, but she didn't go in the water. Mary Hire didn't.
Yeah.
She was at a pharmacy or wherever, or she
Right.
was at work.
Although Mary Hire and another woman, Mrs. Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
they both had dreams of packages,
Yeah.
Christmas packages
Yeah.
floating on the water.
How they tied that together.
Yeah.
And then, like the opening scene of the book is the 2:00 in the morning with Gerald Smallwood. Get off my yard with the guy that I always think is like a bootleg Robert Duvall. I can never think of his name.
Will Patton.
Yeah. Always like the guy that's Robert Duvall, but he's not. I can't ever think of it. He's from the Green Mile.
I'm sure people don't know if they haven't read the book that incident was loosely based on something that did happen to Keel.
Mm-hmm. It was
Keel was across the river
page.
in Gallipolis, and what he would do is he would just knock on doors at random to see if people had any experiences. Mm-hmm. Because he was the big shot UFO guy. People would come to him and make up stories. So he would try to talk to people that were not trying to put one on. And so he goes to this door and he knocks on the door, and the guy's got a shotgun and tells him to get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, what the heck? So he comes back with Mary Hire. Everybody knows Mary Hire. So, and it turns out that a guy that he thought was his friend called him and said, there's a crazy man, that's going around, and,
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to get rid of him. And it turned out his friend didn't call. So, and then they find out Keel's asking him questions, and it turned out he had some kind of a low-level sighting of a strange light, and it burned out the electric box in his barn. So anyway, so that's what that incident was loosely based on something that actually happened.
They did a good job of taking what made a story happen.
Yes.
And I'm supposed that Smallwood was supposed to be Woody.
Woodrow Derenberger,
Yeah,
loosely. Yeah. Um,
kind of a mixture of a few characters, but
well, I had the same when I first saw it. I had the same reaction you did. I was disappointed that there wasn't more from the book and more about the Men in Black. And then once I thought through it, I thought, well, they couldn't really do that. It has become one of my favorite films of all time.
mm-hmm.
I love the way that they put that together, and I'm a huge film score fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Tom and Andy did this incredibly atmospheric soundtrack for the film.
Is that that's the music video at the end of it, isn't it? The bonus
Well,
track.
that's actually there's two discs in it. There's one that is is strictly instrumental, just
Mm-hmm.
by Tom and Andy, and then there's the other disc which is Low and King Black Acid, and they did a whole bunch of songs
Mm-hmm.
for the film, but only the Half Light is the one you're talking about. They
Yeah, yeah.
ran at the end credits, and then there's another part of another song where the couple is in the car, and the light
Mm-hmm.
shines overhead. There's part of another song. The rest of them they did not, as far as I know, they did not use in the film, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, with the welding eye burn.
Yes,
I can't think of it. What is that called?
but the conjunctivitis.
Yeah, I just saw it yesterday. Jesus Christ, I've had it before when I welded in high school. Not a big fan. Yeah, I've had that movie. I've had it on VHS. I've had it on DVD once. I've got it on DVD now. I had to rebuy it. I don't know where it went. I guess it disappeared. Mothman got it. And
Well,
then
the original deluxe edition
yeah,
has a documentary in it as well. That came out at the same time as the film did.
I have to look for that one. I had bootleg it for a few years. I had it on like a bootleg DVD that I found. Have you ever seen Dragonfly with Kevin Costner?
What's it called again?
Dragonfly, snake,
Uh,
like the.
no.
If you like the Mothman prophecies, you would love Dragonfly. Scared the shit out of me. Like a better, because I was in college from 2002 to 2006, and for a couple of weeks I was in my apartment by myself. I had Dragonfly from. You remember when movie stores would sell their old DVDs for like $1, Blockbuster,
Right.
and my mom had got me that. She would just get one that looked interesting because I was in my apartment with no cable, and I watched that one afternoon. It was 1 p.m. in the summer in Alabama. It was bright outside. It's bright, and I was scared to death. And I've seen it several times before. I've still got it, and it's not a scary show, but that I'm real bad to get psyched out. And it had me turning on lights in my back room, opening doors. But you'll like it. It's in the same vein as Mothman. I don't know how true it is, but it's got that same kind of feel to it.
Okay.
Highly
Let's check it
recommend
out.
it. But yeah, I wanted to wrap up with a question. Like, the end of the book ended. The end of the book ended. Is that a phrase? The book ended with the Silver Bridge and like this whole wrap up. And you never know what's going to happen. What did he say? John Keel. In the book I've got, he even wrote like an afterwards from 2001.
Right. That would have been probably. I think he probably referred to the movie. There's a 1991 edition also
Mm-hmm.
where he has a long afterward, which was interesting. But
He ends it with Charles Fort's question: "If there's an universal mind, must it be sane?"
yes,
And that's how it ends. And I'm like, well, what happened to Point Pleasant? Like, there, 46 people died, 3 people got swept away, and did this keep happening? Did the Mothman stuff end like then? Did the beeps keep the calls and the Men in Black and the searchers? Like, what happened after that? Like in the 5 to 10 years after that?
well, people still have occasionally said they saw something like the Mothman, but things really calmed down apparently.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, it ended like that was. I was talking to Joe Turry this morning or this afternoon. I'm like, I might start this whole conversation off with what's going on now. Like, what happened after that? Because I'm just forget about him.
Well, there still seems to be a phenomena occurring around the TNT area. People will still see strange lights now and then, but everybody except me. But
You don't got it.
so now, and of course, what led up to that was the the prophecies that Keel was getting from the silent contactees. And remember how they kind of coalesced. They said that, well, there was going to be some kind of an EM effect, whatever the heck that meant. And then they said, oh, it's going to be on December 15th.
Electromagnetism.
Oh, it's going to be when President Johnson lights the Christmas tree. And it's going to be 3 days of darkness and all these horrible things are going to happen. And of course, Keel, by this time, he said he bought it hook, line, and sinker. He's got his jugs of water up in his New York.
Yeah, he had like a bug out bag in his car.
Absolutely freaking out. And the Christmas tree is lit. Nothing happens. And then a few moments later, the blurb comes over about the bridge that collapsed between West Virginia and Ohio. And he was furious. I mean, again, if this is a harbinger, it's like misdirection. And, it's the silent contactees. There was an incident in the mid-50s. Charles Lawhead was a professor at the University of Michigan. He was in contact with a lady who was supposed to be psychic, and she's getting information from the ETs, the Space Brothers, and they're getting predictions. And some of the predictions come true, like they did for the silent contactees. And then the big one, he's told, okay, it's going to be the end of the world, December 21st or whatever it was. Gather everybody together on the hill. The faithful are going to be taken up by the saucers. And so he foolishly tells everybody about this. And guess what? The saucers don't show up. And that was about the end of his tenure as well, I believe. So, and there's another, I'm going to recommend another book. It's called Hungry Ghosts by Joe Fisher. Joe Fisher was in contact with supposedly several deceased people like World War II pilots and so forth, and even a woman from Greece that he's supposed to have been connected with through various incarnations. So he's contacting them through these mediums, and they're giving him all this information. And he's kind of falling in love with this woman that he's supposed to have been in contact with. And so he decides he's going to go on a pilgrimage to England and Greece and prove that the information he's been getting is legit. And so, long story short, he makes the journey. He finds out that some things are dead on accurate, and some of the stuff is absolute BS. There's huge gaps in the information that are just wrong. And so he comes back and he's trying to confront these supposed dead spirits with, hey, wait a minute, you told me that, and they're turning it back on him, that he must have made a mistake somehow, or that he's wrong. It reminded me of the silent contactees when some of the information became tainted, where it was just wrong. And so people should heed this. There's a lot of people out there that believe they're in contact with some kind of entity or intelligence. I would say tread carefully, because the trickster phenomena, whatever that is, may rear its ugly head, as it did for some of the silent contactees and some of the supposed spirits that Joe Fisher was in contact with.
Yeah, it's like a game they play. Of course, he calls it the game they play, doesn't he?
Right.
It just gives you just a little couple of breadcrumbs, and you make yourself look stupid. End up on a hill waiting for the end of the world.
Yeah, don't. If the Space Brothers are going to come down to the hill, don't tell anybody. Just let them pick you up.
It's almost like the penultimate of it is the fake one.
Yeah,
and that's the one they lead you up to it. Which makes me there's been several movies off this book too, hasn't there? There's been Men in Black. Was Close Encounters based off of it? Because of what's his name, Eddie Webb?
That was loosely Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was attached to Blue Book and then started the Center for UFO Studies later on. He wrote a book called The UFO Experience. And in there, he establishes the close encounter categories.
That's right, because Close Encounters is based off Hynek's. But yeah, Eddie Webb was the guy that got burned. That was the one that first one was off. Well,
actually, Hynek was reading in the trade paper or whatever about Spielberg going to do a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but he didn't ask permission. So Hynek wrote him, I don't know, a nice letter. And so Spielberg invited him to be part of the movie. He actually does have a cameo toward the end where all the scientists are there and the craft has come down.
That's such a good movie. Yeah, Hynek's the one with the pipe.
Yep. Yeah, you go. Yep.
I've got a friend that I've worked with here, and he hired me for a job about 10 years ago. His name is Richard Hoffman, and he's a MUFON guy. You may know him. But
I don't. Yeah.
I was wondering if you did or not. But yeah, I really appreciate it, Steve. This has been a nice deep dive, first little toe in to see how the Mothman thing would go. And this is kind of optimistic. Kind of wanted to get the rest of them in here tonight. Next. Well,
it's always fun, and come back anytime. It's I always try to besides doing Mothman 101, I always try to meander a little bit because these things have legs, and then there's so many connections or possible connections. Let's put it that way. And it's
Mothman's like 1% of the whole damn thing.
It's endlessly fascinating.
I was like, I have no idea why this book's even called Mothman. He's not even in it.
Well, I can tell you why. It was called The Bird, but then the Batman TV show was popular at the time. So some faceless copy editor dubbed him Mothman. We don't know who it was, but the name stuck. In fact, it had nothing to do with a moth. So,
yeah, but all the depictions now, just like the one behind you, there's all got the thorax.
Yep. There he is, right there. Yep.
I'm even having a couple insect biologists come on as part of this series. Because one of the things I did with my whole Bigfoot thing, I'd have paleontologists and anthropologists on. So I'm trying to get an ornithologist. I'm trying to get I've already got the bug doctor coming on.
Right.
That'd be fun.
Just keep in mind that Mothman didn't behave. He busted the laws of physics, whatever it was.
Didn't flap. He just went up.
Right.
Which is like, why do you even have wings, man? Why don't you pull a Clark Kent? Just bust out. All right, man. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks for coming on, and I'll reach out to you if I need anything, and feel free to ask me anything too, because I'm fair game. I know some folks as well.
Well, my pleasure. Just let me know when the episode goes up. And
I don't know. The gravediggers saw the bird. The Scarberries saw glowing red eyes in the TNT area. Marcella Bennett dropped her baby. UFOs and strange lights appeared in the sky almost every night, and countless residents were visited by strange men in black suits with large grins. And Mary Hyre dreamed of floating presence in the Ohio River. From November 1966 to December 1967, the people in and around Point Pleasant had sightings of a large bird-like creature known as Mothman. But it's what happened after those I-beams hit the water that we rarely talk about. Welcome to episode 2 of this summer's limited podcast series, 100 Days of Mothman, brought to you by the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network. All summer long, we're diving deep with eyewitnesses, paranormal researchers, scientists, and filmmakers to explore the mystery, madness, and the legacy of Mothman. Our guest today is world-renowned documentarian Seth Breedlove, the creative force behind Small Town Monsters. He's explored everything from Bigfoot and UFOs to the full spectrum of the paranormal, and carved out a legacy doing so. Today we're focused on his 2 powerful Mothman films, The Mothman of Point Pleasant and The Mothman Legacy. We'll be taking a deep dive into what happened in and around Point Pleasant after the Silver Bridge collapse, a time period that's rarely explored but crucial to the understanding to the full Mothman phenomenon. I'm Bobby, host of the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network, and this is episode 2 of 100 Days of Mothman. You can watch the full video on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and several other of your favorite audio apps. Or catch the whole series anytime at Mothman100.com. And now that your seat backs and tray tables are in the upright positions, do me a favor and please like, subscribe, follow, and share. It helps me more than you know. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Here's Seth Breedlove of Small Town Monsters to discuss Mothman, after the Silver Bridge. Well, let me start off by saying how beautiful your documentaries are. Not to be a kiss ass or anything, but like the legacy, I said this could just be one of those ambient videos you watch while you're studying because it's just like the rolling hills.
Yeah, I like that. That movie was a bomb.
Yeah, like I thought it was a feature film for a minute. I was like, "Is this a movie?" Is it? I was like, I didn't read any of it. I'd seen Mothman at Point Pleasant before, and it was like recommended. Here's Mothman Legacy for $5. I'm like, not today, ISIS. I'll be back later. Yeah. But then, like, you recommended it to me, so I bought it last night and watched it.
Oh, you didn't even have to buy it. I think it's on Tubi for free.
Oh, yeah, it probably was. I was back here in my office, and so I was like, I'll just throw that on there on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'll definitely watch it on Tubi. I usually do at night. Watch something like that.
Yeah, I like that movie, but it definitely tanked. No one
did it really?
Oh yeah.
It's almost like the phenomenon of Mothman itself. Like no one ever did anything with it after 1967. December 16th, 1967, no Mothman. I think you might have the only thing that talks about it afterwards, besides just a couple little random documentaries.
There were a lot of television docs. Are we recording?
Yeah, I'm just
okay. Cool. Yeah, no, there were a lot of television docs, and I actually like a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like right around the same time that the Richard Gere movie came out. There were a bunch.
Yeah, that really kind of lit the fuse.
Yeah, and there was one that was done in conjunction with that movie that Lauren Coleman is in, and it has interviews with like some of the original witnesses. It's actually like maybe even more valuable as a historically preserving witness testimony than our movie because it has so many of the original witnesses actually in it. Like where our movie we really had to rely on Jeff Walmsley's audio recordings and old archival video footage.
It's good that he had those.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have made the movie if we didn't. Like that was the day I went and met with Jeff at the Mothman Museum in 2016 or 20 was it 2016? It might have been, yeah, it was 2016. We went and met with Jeff because I wasn't even sure if we were going to make that movie. And he was like, I have these audio recordings with some of the original witnesses if you want them. I was like, well, obviously.
Oh, yeah, please.
So
I was wondering how you even like broke ground in this particular subject, because when I started looking at it, like I just went to IMDb and you came up, and then 4 or 5 other people came up. So what's it like to do an actual investment production into the subject matter and go, hey, can I sit with you in a room with a blanket behind you for a few hours and you do this for free? Or like,
so I'm trying to figure out, there was a doc. I want to make sure I mention the right movies, because some of these, there were movies that were out that I think are actually really good.
That Mothman Beyond the Legend is a good one.
It is good.
Yeah.
The other one is there's like this 3-hour documentary. I mean, it's not quite 3 hours, but it's close, and it's really well made. I think I swear to God, it's called Behind the Red Eyes, but I gotta make sure.
I think I've seen that somewhere on like Tubi or something.
Yeah. It's not even on IMDb, so maybe that's not it. Whatever it is, there's a really good doc that came out years before ours that gets real deep into the weeds on the story and goes deep into like the MIB stuff and the UFOs and all that. My thing was like, I know that's all part of it, but to me it was all ancillary in our film. Because if we started focusing on that stuff, it's going to take you on so many rabbit trails that you're never going to stay focused in a film, like a feature doc. So we really wanted to focus on the Mothman, the original Mothman story, and do it chronologically, because that was the one thing that I noticed about all those movies I had watched was like there was no just simple chronological retelling of the events of 66 and 67. So that's what we did.
They basically just told from most interesting to the least interesting.
Yeah.
In no particular order.
Yeah. What was your question? I totally steamrolled.
No, I mean, just how do you, you got into it. How do you break ground into a town like Point Pleasant? So I'd like to interview you for this, even though it's.
It was Jeff. Yeah, definitely Jeff Walmsley. Because
he's a cool dude.
He is. Like, we showed up. It was my mom and dad and I. And back in those days, my parents would just accompany me on all sorts of like shoots, which my mom passed back in 23, so it's like a fun memory now. But they went with me to Point Pleasant, and we went to the Mothman Museum literally to see if I could even make a movie about it. And Jeff obviously offered me those audio recordings, but he also was like, I can hook you up with some other people who've never spoken about their encounter. And I was like, all right, well, which is a big deal because at that point in time, we had made Minerva Monster, which was shot on like essentially like VHS. And it looks like it. And, was a really low budget.
And so was Blair Witch, so don't count yourself short.
Yeah. Well, the camera we shot with is the same camera they shot Paranormal Activity with. So, but he took a gamble by doing that because he was kind of like putting his reputation on. People like that are putting their reputation on the line if they vouch for you. And Jeff didn't really know me too well at that point in time, but he went out on a limb and was willing to talk about the fact we were making the doc with some people and convince some people. The crazy thing was, is it Carolyn Harris? Good Lord, that owned the Harris Steakhouse there downtown. That
I think it was Carolyn.
Yeah, she passed shortly before the making of our movie, and that I think it was that same trip where I talked to Jeff. I went over and talked to her in the. No, it wasn't that same trip. It was our first B-roll trip. We were shooting B-roll for the movie, Zach and I, and I went into the steakhouse late at night. She was closing, and we talked for a while, and she was talking to me about her son and her ex-husband dying on the bridge. And I was so excited to have her involved in that movie, and then she passed away before we got to making it, which has happened. At that point in time, we had made 3 movies in a row where that had happened. Beast of Whitehall, while we were making Beast of Whitehall, one of the original witnesses passed literally the day we decided that was the movie we were going to make. And then Smokey Crabtree died like 2 weeks before. I didn't mean to laugh like it's funny, but I mean, he passed away 2 weeks before we were.
I laughed because you laughed. I'm like, okay, guess we didn't like
just
Smokey.
Cracking up over people dying. But no, he passed away 2 weeks before we started shooting Boggy Creek, and then Carolyn died during the production, I believe, like before we had a chance to interview her.
Didn't you put for Carolyn?
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think we did on that one.
Yeah. Like the beginning or the start, beginning or the end.
Yeah. She was cool. A lot of people in the town at that point in time that I had the chance to talk to, like I connected with, because I grew up in a small town, a lot smaller than Point Pleasant. And I don't know, I always just felt a kinship with Point Pleasant, because even though it's West Virginia, it's it's right over the river. And also, like, I grew up in Bolivar, Ohio, which is that Appalachian part of the state.
Okay.
Of Ohio, so I kind of feel like I'm more West Virginia than I am Ohio in some ways.
That explains your proximity to Minerva.
Yeah, I'm not far from there at all. Even now,
I knew a lady who went over to Minerva, and they were doing Bigfoot calls on an app, and they turned the app off, and they started hearing the calls again. Like, turn the app off. Like, I'm not doing the calls.
Yeah.
Oh crap! Get out. Let's get out of here.
Where were they?
It's Minerva.
No, I mean, do you know where?
I don't know.
You don't know.
It was a dirt road. I know that narrows it down.
Yeah, that doesn't narrow it down at all. Yeah, it's funny. Minerva, like my sister got her wedding dress in Minerva when we were kids. We used to eat at the Doug's Classic 57 on the main drag in Minerva like once or twice a week. And so I almost grew up there. But it is weird that town was that close, but I never really knew about their monster until way later.
Now John Keel mentioned he kept mentioning big hairy monsters, and I'm assuming he meant Bigfoot as sightings, but he never went into them. And like I'm reading a book, and I'm like, well, give me something, John.
He references one sighting,
but
he says it's the Mothman. He says it's hairy with wings.
He would just casually mention a hairy monster in the woods every so often.
Yeah. Well, he was he's a super interesting guy, but his approach was so wide open. Like he just kind of took everything in. I don't think he took everything in at face value. Like he's not a Gray Barker type.
No,
Where it's like 90% of it is it's made up. But he definitely, like, I don't know. I like Keel. I'm a fan, but I don't buy everything. And I don't think he would have wanted people to buy everything. He seemed to be pretty fluid in his opinions on this
his
stuff.
writing style and research style felt more like, here it is, you figure it out. This is what happened. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
He was very, very sincere. It felt like I was talking like a friend over a beer or something.
Yeah.
And the way he described everything, like it was over and over. And I felt like if it was really 100% as dynamic as he said it was, the military should have been all over Point Pleasant.
Well,
like the end of ET kind of level.
He also fell into that trap of like heavily. God, I don't want to start bashing Keel because there's so many Keel apologists, but he fell into that trap of like heavily involving himself in the story, and not just as like a researcher or a journalist, but like in the book, he becomes sort of like the main character of the book by the end of it. And I'm sure some of that is just due to the nature of the way things unfolded, but I also think you have to be really careful in doing that. And you know, my biggest problem with Mothman Prophecies is it stops being about the original witnesses, and you know, it stops being a journalistic look at the Mothman and becomes this like tense like paranormal thriller by the end of it, and he's getting all these phone calls and stuff, and
has to go down to the basement, look for his line. Yeah,
but he is a great writer. Like we don't have too many people like that in the paranormal anymore, as far as like authors and journalists.
Wish I had his travel budget.
Yeah. Playboy sent him to do that story on the UFOs, and that's what turned into the Mothman Prophecies. He was doing a story on the UFOs around West Virginia, which started in the 50s. Really, I mean, there were UFO waves in West Virginia in the 50s, but that 60s flap in particular was all across the state. How he wound up in Point Pleasant, I mean, he says he just kind of like got lost and wound up there, but I don't know. That's pretty off the beaten path, Point Pleasant.
Started with the grave diggers and just ended up going like spiraling downhill.
Yeah. It's a good book. I enjoy it. I try to read it every couple years because there's so much to digest with the Mothman stuff. And that's why I wanted to make a second movie, because like the Mothman in Point Pleasant stops at 67, but there's sightings that preceded 66, and there's sightings that took place after 67. And I knew there was more to tell there. So we took kind of a different approach with the second movie, and I don't know, must not have didn't connect with an audience.
Well, it's one of those things the audience don't know what they're like. You don't like those people anyway. Like I'm like, I mean, if you like the Mothman thing, and the second one is like the perfect sequel. It just picks up and like wraps up everything like with a neat little bow, because you don't get anything any other.
It's a little.
It features more of the area more than it does the phenomenon.
It does. I'm really proud of the footage, the B-roll. Like we really went all in. That was filmed. So we started shooting that in December of 2019, and then COVID hit, and we lost half the crew because they wouldn't leave their house. And so it became me and Zach shooting everything kind of by ourselves. And we went on numerous road trips just to shoot B-roll, and so we could get a wide, you know, swath of the West Virginia landscape in the movie. So we filmed all over. And that same year that we were filming that, we ended up filming On the Trail of UFOs, Dark Sky, which is also a West Virginia set movie. And so, I mean, we came out of that thing with terabytes full of West Virginia B-roll.
I think I've started Dark Sky 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. It gets boring.
Well, no, like a documentary. I love stand-up comedies and documentaries.
Yeah.
and I'll watch them just as backup noise. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll finish them. And so, like, somebody's like, "It put you to sleep." It doesn't really put me to sleep. It does the count sheep thing, where I'm
Yeah.
trying to pay attention to it so much so that it's just like,
What comedians do you like?
oh, I love. Right now I'm into Nate Bargatze, which so is everyone. But I've been listening to comedians since like I was in, middle school.
Yeah, I have
Like,
a funny story. He's a Bigfoot fan, and so Courtney and I went to see him in Louisville, and she took a package with some of our Bigfoot movies to a guy at the door, handed it to him, and walked away. And inside the package was like 3 of our DVDs, and then our phone number. It was like a business card with our phone number. And we left the show after the show ended and went back to our hotel, and we were sitting down in a restaurant to eat. And his manager texted us and was like, "Did you guys leave? He wants to meet you." And so we had left, but we were like, "We can be right back." So
which comedian was this?
this is Nate.
Nate Bargatze.
Yeah. So we jump up and we run back to the venue and go inside thinking there's no way we're going to get in there because they had already started locking all the doors and everything. And Courtney ran up to some random security guy and was like, "Nate Bargatze wants to talk to us." And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, guys."
Yeah, of course.
And so she ended up handing him her phone, and he called his manager, and the manager was like, "Yeah, send him down." So we ended up going down and talking Bigfoot with Nate and his openers for a while. And he wanted to know about my sighting, like my Bigfoot sighting. And then he was like, we're gonna come to Ohio sometime and go Bigfooting with you guys. I was like, all right.
Yeah, I've met his Nate Aaron Weber a couple of times here in Huntsville.
Aaron's great. Yeah.
And fist bumped him in Birmingham. I came out of the bathroom and went and got some beer, and there's Aaron waiting to go on stage in between Julian and Nate. And I said, "What's up, Aaron?" He's like, "The heck?" Because this is kind of right before Nateland took off.
Yeah.
He's like, "Who knows me?" I'm like, "I know you, bro." So I hang out at the comedy club in Huntsville all the time.
That's cool.
Martin Norman and all those guys.
Is that where you are? Is Alabama?
Yeah, Huntsville, Alabama.
That's cool. I haven't spent my mom owned a Civil War bookstore, like a bookstore with, historical books. And we used to travel a lot. Alabama, the only thing I remember about Alabama, it's like Mississippi. Alabama and Mississippi had the best catfish I ever had.
Oh yeah. Have you heard of Mike Family?
Yeah.
Behind Red. He's coming down here. I'm giving him like a tour of the county in April. He's coming down for a thing in my hometown. I'm like, "Hey, you like catfish?" He goes, "I don't really like it." I'm like, "This is not going to be good."
He'll come around. He probably hasn't had it.
Yeah, he's from New Jersey. I'm like, "What's it?"
Yeah, he's never had real.
He's had mud and pizza, and that's no in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving him like the dime tour. We were going to go to this real big hike, but like I don't want to take 2 days off work to camp at a place with no running water if I don't have to. So we're just going to go to some caverns that are cool.
That's cool.
And my buddy,
Huntsville. I know I've been to Huntsville, but it's been a long time.
It's where it's at, man. It's the Austin, Texas of Alabama. Lots of people who aren't from here. That's the bad part there. And the influx of Space Force and everything isn't making it any better because traffic is just like,
yeah,
it's great. It's a good problem to have as being an economically viable area.
Yeah. Yeah, and back when I was a kid, I remember Alabama being kind of like dirt poor.
Still is.
Like, yeah. I mean, like I have family in Bryson City, North Carolina, so I consider myself like part of the South.
You go to South Alabama, it is dirt poor.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a cool state. They filmed Close Encounters of the Third Kind there.
Yep. We did some. I was a film student at Alabama University. And we did some little mini docs and things there.
That's cool.
And one of the things we did was the movies filmed here, and that was like a little clip of it.
Adam Wingard's from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. It might be Huntsville. I can't remember where he's from specifically. But
I work with the Wingard.
Really?
Yeah. Always. Yeah. It's probably not related though.
It might be, dude, because I know his brother still lives there, and his mom and dad still live there. So.
Adam Wingard, I had to look that up because I know that name.
Adam directed Kong versus Godzilla and the second Kong versus Godzilla and the Blair Witch movie and Death Note.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've had Eduardo Sanchez on here before.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
Eduardo on. It's funny, we had Eduardo on my old podcast, Sasquatch, but Adam and I, Adam Wingard and I became buddies back in 2017 because of our Invasion on Chestnut Ridge movie. And then I came to find out like Eduardo and him are kind of like, he likes Eduardo Sanchez, but apparently Eduardo has some hard feelings toward him because Adam had directed the Blair Witch movie. And apparently like Eduardo was cut out of that movie entirely. And so it was a little awkward.
I think they put him back eventually. It's kind of something they claim now.
Yeah.
He was such a fun dude because I was looking in to do I was going to talk to him about the Patterson Gimlin costume versus the Exist costume. He's like, yeah, I don't know how they would have made that back then because we couldn't have made a good one in 2010 or whatever that was.
Yeah. Oh, I think the Exist costume's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary as it can be.
Yeah. So is that are you a PGF believer?
I go back and forth. I mean, it could be, I don't know. Like from what you learn from even John Keel talking about the phenomenon of seeing the creature, but it not actually being there, that kind of thing, being a hypothesis, like them being flesh and blood at all times is something that either they are or they're not. Maybe they're in between. But how come that one didn't phase out and no clip into the back rooms like the rest of them do? He just kept walking. But I'd like to believe it. I mean,
yeah. I don't know. There's more. I always just go, I'm a flesh and blood guy. I mean, I'm all about everything, like all the stories. But personally, like everything I've experienced, everything I've seen still just points me to like a flesh and blood creature.
I go back and forth. That's the fun thing about it. You really don't have to commit.
No, that's what I'm always telling everybody that. And then people get like, people get in these camps now, and it cracks me up because like,
bro,
there's terms now for people that think Bigfoot is. I keep seeing comments on like Facebook and stuff for people that think Bigfoot's like a flesh and blood animal. They call us apers.
Yeah.
Apers. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm an aper. I don't know. Or you're an aper or you're woo.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we stop?
Hey, talk about fighting amongst yourself for no reason. Like, let's just see if it's real, then decide what it is.
Yeah. Or just have fun. Like, chill out.
You know, I consider it a cinematic universe. That's how I treat it. I call it the Mothman cinematic universe because it's the most fun you can have. Like, it's pound for pound, the Mothman cinematic universe is more fun than Bigfoot, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I probably agree. I love that. I get more like on my own, not necessarily talking about it with other people, but I get more invested in the Bigfoot topic than anything else. But as far as like what I have a much easier time of making movies about like Flatwoods Monster or Thunderbirds or the Bell Witch or Mothman than I do Bigfoot, because you're always just worried about stepping on toes. It's not as bad as Dogman, but it's close.
You don't have enough time to start that. That's a tactical bro, I will punch you in the face kind of thing. Those guys are mean about it.
Yeah.
Like, why are you like this?
No, I mean, the infighting with the Dogman stuff's insane.
Like, imagine gatekeeping a cryptid you don't even know exists yet.
Yeah, it might be because the subject is still kind of in its infancy and people want to be the ones that are the John Greens of Dogman, you know?
Yep.
But, so people want to stake their claim in it, but it's volatile. It's very volatile.
I'll tell you why you probably like doing the Flatwood Monster and the Mothman thing the best. It's because there's actual characters to address. It's not like Bigfoot is just all over the place. Like every map dot has 6 of them.
Yeah,
and you can't just pick. You know, you can go. I even made a note here. I said there should be Mothman trading cards because there's like people you have to know. You have to know, the Mallets, the Bennetts, the Thomases. You have to know the Scarberries.
Yeah.
But Bigfoot is just like, it's either like Patterson Gimlin or no one.
The thing about Mothman, and I think is it my favorite cryptid or favorite paranormal story? No, but I think it's the best because that, especially if you're looking at the 66, 67 stuff, it just has a natural story flow that most of these cases don't have, because it has I mean, that's the whole point of the movie, The Mothman of Point Pleasant, was that, like take you through the 3 acts of that story from 66 and 67. It's got the inciting event that really blows it up, which is the Scarberry mallet thing. It's not the first sighting or anything, but that's the thing that kind of puts it on the map. And then it kind of culminates with the collapse of the Silver Bridge. It didn't actually end with the collapse of the Silver Bridge, but that is such a neat bow on it, for that period of time. And there aren't other stories that have that kind of beginning, middle, and an end. And Flatwoods especially is these kids try telling the Flatwoods. When I was doing interviews for the Flatwoods Monster movie that we made to promote it, people would be like, well, tell me about the Flatwoods Monster. I'm like, okay, it's 3 minutes. I'll tell you about the Flatwoods Monster in 3 minutes.
And it may be an hour. We don't know.
Yeah. But the Mothman, you can talk about forever, because there's so much that happened in that span of time too. Even if you're only looking at the 66, 67 stuff, there's
it's like it was written.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some of it was because of Gray Barker.
Yeah.
But it is that is the one I said when we were making it. I was like, we're never going to have anything like this again. And we haven't. We kind of went in the opposite direction with the movie immediately after it too, because Mothman of Point Pleasant is such a focused film. We're really focused on that one time period. And the next movie we made was Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, which kind of with this anthology look, anthological anthology. It's an anthology. It looks at all these, looks at all these different sightings from the Chestnut Ridge of all these UFOs, Bigfoots, whatever. And it was honestly kind of like a nice palate cleanser coming off of the Mothman of Point Pleasant, because we had been so, just focused on this one span of time. But it's a really unique story, and it's got so much to it. I think that's why it's blown up too in pop culture, is, which is good and bad, because so many people the Silver Bridge collapse, getting sucked into the Mothman sphere is kind of unfortunate, frankly. Because I know for a lot of the people that lost loved ones on the bridge, it was not a pleasant thing that every year they had to hear about how the Mothman was seen on the bridge, foretelling of the disaster, which there's no record of that. There's no, that isn't really a thing that I think happened. Although there is the sighting that Jeff Wamsley informed me of, which involved, I think, his uncle or his cousin seeing the Mothman adjacent to the bridge, the day before the collapse. That's the only report I'm actually aware of where somebody claims to have seen the Mothman and in conjunction with the bridge.
Yeah, it seems like that it was the perfect ending. That's all this stuff happened and nothing. The crescendo they were hoping for with the blown up naval power plant. What was it?
It's a. You mean the Ordnance Works, where they built the?
No,
the power plant. Yeah.
In the movie, they said they were going to blow. It's actually the Harbinger. They said there was going to be a disaster. Don't go there. It's going to be a disaster. Turned out not to be. And then a day later, here came the.
Yeah.
Well, no, in the book it was, and in reality it was the Christmas tree lighting was going to shut down the power grid for the country. Turned out as soon as that happened, Silver Bridge collapsed.
Yeah, you're more educated than me on that, dude. It's been 2017 that I made this movie. That's what I said to my wife before I came down here. I was like, I hope I can remember.
It's fine.
What to talk about, because I just did Astonishing Legends yesterday, though, and thankfully we talked a bunch about the Mothman, so it's kind of fresh. But the actual original story is out of my mind right now. I spent 4 months working on a UFO movie about the Thomas Mantell event in Kentucky, and then I've been strictly Bigfoot stuff for the last 2 months. So it's where my brain is.
Yeah, Bigfoot is like my favorite topic to podcast on. But you said the word palate cleanser a while ago. I have on paleontologists and anthropologists to do that for me. Like, tell me something that really happened. Like, give me a fact, buddy.
Yeah.
Let me see a peer reviewed white paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I'm so like well versed, I just finished this book like last week. It's kind of like a textbook.
Yeah.
And I got Steve Ward's book back here. He was on last week.
Did Steve write a book?
Yeah, he did.
I don't have Steve's book.
You need to.
Yeah,
Mothman Strangeness.
Oh, it's got a Mark Randall cover.
Yep.
Oh, I do have that book. Never mind, I'm an idiot. Yeah.
This is like the official cliff notes to the
yeah. I like it because it shows off Mark's work. Mark's a really good artist, and he's like the sweetest guy, very soft spoken and humble guy, but really good artist.
He makes these characters look creepy too.
Yeah, his art has a really unique flair for it.
That one right there is my favorite with John Keel. He looks like he's gonna throw that hat at somebody and cut their head off.
I think that's the same image that is it's either in our Mothman Legacy movie or it's on the Trail of UFOs, because Mark did a lot of work for both those projects.
I think it's that second one, because in the Legacy it's like an older version of Mark. He looks like Colonel Sanders a little bit. John Keel does.
Yeah. Yeah, the Legacy movie was tough for us because Mothman at Point Pleasant came out in 2017, and we were the first day of shooting Invasion on Chestnut Ridge was the day the movie came out on Amazon, and we had never had any substantial amount of like success with our movies. They were on DVD, and then we started putting them on Amazon in 2016, and in 2017 Mothman and Point Pleasant came out, and our last movie, Boggy Creek Monster, had kind of flopped. So Mothman was like, we put all our eggs in that basket. We're like, everything we can do to make this amazing, we're going to do. And the movie came out on our first day of filming Invasion on Chestnut Ridge. We're staying in this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, and we started hearing rumblings that the movie was being seen by a lot of people. We didn't hear rumblings about that. We started picking up on the fact that a lot of people were talking about the movie, and so we started watching the charts, like the bestseller charts. So on Friday, that movie was charting in the top 50 overall movies on Amazon, which was insane. But by the next morning, by Saturday morning, it had jumped into the top 10. And when I say top 10, it was up against, it overtook Rogue One. What? It was like one space below Logan, because they were both on the chart at the same time. So we were on cloud nine. So it seemed like a no-brainer to make a sequel to Mothman and Point Pleasant. And so we made Mothman Legacy. And then right around the same time, we'd been contacted by 1091, who at the time I think was called The Orchard. They were like a big independent production house or distribution house. And, they offered us what seemed like a good deal. They wanted to spend a ton of money on marketing. And we're like, heck yeah, because we didn't realize we have to recoup all that for them. Because we'd never done a distribution deal, and
just thought you're getting money. Hey,
we're like, yeah, give us all that money. So they spent close to $20,000 marketing the movie, which is more than the movie cost us to make. And so the movie came out and no one watched it. And I mean, thankfully, when I say a bomb, it's been seen. It's been on television in the UK a bunch. It's been seen. It's just when I think back to it, what we expected, what the expectation was versus what the reality of it were two very drastically different things. And we put so much work and time and effort into that movie that for it to come out and no one see it for the first year it was out seemed like a big bomb. But I'm probably more harsh on it than I need to be. I like the movie. I'm proud of the work that we did on it.
It's more of a work of art than the first one. Feels like it's got more personality as far as diving into the stories. I mean, it's like a biopic on the Walmsleys at the end. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the Walmsleys a lot, and without them, there would not be an STM. I don't think because because I don't think we would have made Mothman at Point Pleasant without Jeff getting involved. And if I hadn't made Mothman at Point Pleasant, I don't know that we would have made it another year back then, just because I was still working like a full-time job, and we were struggling getting going, and Jeff kind of saved the day for us. So I really wanted to do something that was like a homage to them. I like the movie. I don't know that I would put it above Mothman at Point Pleasant. I think Mothman at Point Pleasant is really special to me because even though it's definitely like a more amateurish STM film, because like we're still getting our feet under us. It's the first time we ever had done recreations. A lot of the live action recreations were shot with my iPhone, which people might not realize. It's also the first time we used like the art, the animated art.
Who did those? I've noticed who did your animations. That's like,
his name's Chris Scouth. He did work for us all the way through. Well, he did work for us back in 2023. He worked on our Dogman Triangle movie. But he was really heavily involved for the first, from that point in time, from 2017 all the way through to like 2020. And it was fun to watch his style evolve, because on that movie, people always talk about like how the human characters look like N64.
Yeah.
But I love the stuff he did on that movie, especially the power plant sequence, the way he illustrated the.
Is that on the third floor where he was walking across?
Yeah.
That's the one I was mentioning. It's like, it's crazy. It looks like an actual professional studio did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. We had gone from making these very low budget, and Mothman at Point Pleasant was a low budget too, but it was a huge step up in production value from Boggy Creek Monster to Mothman at Point Pleasant, just because of the animatics and I mean, it was a crazy jump, a leap from those two movies.
And the main witness didn't die the week before it started, so it's
well, Carolyn passed, so
huge plus.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to wrap up here, and I really appreciate you coming on. I wanted to like hit another point about Mothman that I noticed is, the thing was, it's called The Bird.
Yeah. Until
some reporter who watched too many George Clooney movies called it the Batman, and that's the story for another podcast entirely. But it seems like it went through a lot of effort to be seen. Whenever it was around, it flew in front of windows. Yeah, it jumped. It chased cars like a dog. Like I think that's the reason. I think its purpose was to instill fear. Like there was nothing but non-evil about it.
See, my thing with the Mothman, where I'm at with the Mothman is that there is no it. There's no singular it. In my opinion, the Mothman there were multiple phenomena taking place at that point in time. And I'm not just talking about like UFOs and Men in Black. I'm talking about, I think there were multiple things in the sky and on the ground being identified as one being called the Mothman. I don't know. I think there were misidentifications of owls during that time. I think there were probably misidentifications of other animals. I also think there was something unknown, but what that is, I don't have a clue. Like I think I don't know. The Mothman's like a perpetually confusing one because of
it goes back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
The stories get really confusing. Like you mix up the characters, like I said, when you trade cards. Because there's too many damn Connies.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of like the point of the Mothman. Is to say, these people are going to say the same thing. Like less of hell or something does not seem to be the same thing. Not in his bedroom, but his house. Which, by the way, I'm the one so
that the sound in the background says, "Hey, I'm like, dude, no, get out." Turn my lights on a little bit.
We shot that movie. There was no rain. The other one.
Michael Crichton over here.
But I think it was multiple different things. I mean, if you go to those bird sightings, the bird sightings that preceded World War II. But it seems super similar to the
you got some sightings where they flap their wings, and some sightings where they go straight up. Like what's her name, Faye Ford.
Yeah.
Didn't flap.
Yeah.
Just took off.
Yeah. But when you also rope in the IPTC emissions and the markers, when there's a lot of stuff coming out, is more than likely either overly dramatized by them, or specifically Parker.
He was a stand-up crane.
Was he?
He was. I think he was the local biologist.
Yeah. Sanderson I have issues with too, because he's the one that he made that story into something completely different from what the witnesses actually reported and experiencing. But Barker, when you integrate Barker into the whole thing, it's so complex as to what might have actually happened. I think that obviously the Strawberry and Mallet sighting happened, the Tom Murray sighting happened, the Bob Bosworth thing happened. There's stories and the witnesses in our movie. I believe a lot of those encounters are real, but I also think that especially in the years afterward, you've had a lot of people try to claim their own Mothman encounters who might not have ever actually had a Mothman encounter. But that happens with every subject, so it's not.
I've noticed a lot of that with Bigfoot people is, I grew up in the woods, like real rural area, in like a house was in the woods, and stuff that would happen to you all the time, like in the backyard, just kind of hanging out. Mm-hmm. That happens to somebody that's not ever been in the woods, and that thing. If you heard two hoot owls fighting, and you didn't know what you were hearing, you would think all hell was breaking loose.
I live in Massillon, Ohio, which is a city. And I'm in a neighborhood. I'm at the end of a cul-de-sac. There's a forest behind my house, but it's like right on the other side of this little patch of forest is other trees or other houses and all this stuff. I hear noises at night that if I heard alone in the woods in the middle of nowhere, I'd be convinced we're a Bigfoot, or something. And there's just weird stuff in the woods in general, weird sounds and
stuff. I mean, animals make sounds that aren't just your usual see and say sounds.
Yeah,
like a chicken makes a sound you never heard before.
Yeah, peacocks. Have you ever heard of peacock?
Yeah, help.
Peacocks. I'll never forget this. My ex-wife and I were in Tennessee. We were on the Parkway, and we had stopped at like a pull-off, and we were standing there, and we started hearing this really weird, what I took to be a call, and I recorded it with my phone, and I sent it to the Ohio BFRO head. And I was like, is this a Bigfoot? And he was like, no, that's a peacock.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But that's not something I would have. I've been around peacocks. I've never heard that noise. So
you really don't hear it unless you're far away from a peacock. If you're near it, it sounds just like them squawking really loud.
Oh, really?
It's a weird phenomenon.
Huh.
Because if you're next to a peacock in a cage and it does that, you hear it, but it's like almost like a train horn coming. Huh. So you're in Massillon, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
The people I know that went to Minerva live in Massillon.
Oh, really?
It's the Massillon's own Bigfoot guy, the kid that goes to the town square and dresses like Bigfoot.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, there's like a Massillon Bigfoot mascot. It's him.
Oh, that's
weird that you said that. What if he's like your stepson or something?
Yeah,
like,
no.
You mean Harry? Yeah.
Yeah, this is we've lived here this is where STM's based. We've been here for 3 years now.
That's cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This has been great. And if you ever need anything from me, holler at me. This series is coming out in the summer. I don't know what order yet. You're number 2 behind Steve Ward.
Cool.
Not for any particular reason. Just happen to be the schedule.
Yeah. No, I don't. I gladly will follow Steve. I like Steve.
And if you come to I think I'm going to go to the festival this year.
I'll be there. I think we're setting up this year.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'll go ahead and let you go and get back to your live stream then.
Yeah, we got a live stream.
Yeah. Bless your heart.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right, man. Thanks.
that I gathered from all this is the lack of fear. I wasn't really afraid, even when that thing was right over top of us, and when I fell on that thing's feet, and when it picked me up and put me in the car, I still was hanging out of the car window trying to see what I could see, and wanting to go back up over the hill and find it again. I wasn't afraid, and I was more like euphoric.
Welcome to episode 3 of this summer's limited podcast series, 100 Days of Mothman, brought to you by the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network. All summer long, we're diving deep with eyewitnesses, paranormal researchers, scientists, and filmmakers to explore the mystery, madness, and legacy of the Mothman. Episode 3 features a first-hand account from eyewitness Linda Sigmund, whose terrifying 1967 encounter may be one of the clearest Mothman sightings ever recorded. At just 16 years old, Linda and her boyfriend were stargazing near Pomeroy, Ohio, when they noticed a glowing red star that descended silently until it blotted out the entire night sky. Moments later, Mothman appeared, flying alongside their speeding car in a moment that would change their life forever. In this episode, Linda shares her chilling memories and insights from her book, Beyond the Pale Moonlight, a UFO Mothman encounter, and thoughts on Men in Black, Chief Cornstalk, and the Silver Bridge disaster. This isn't just a legend, it's a lived experience, and it adds a deeply human layer to the Mothman mystery. Once again, I am Bobby, host of the Caffeinated Cryptid Podcast Network, and this is episode 3 of 100 Days of Mothman. You can watch the full video on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and several other of your favorite audio apps, or catch the whole series anytime at mothman100.com. And please be kind once again. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share. It helps me way more than you know. Now, no more waiting. Here's When the Mothman Blocked Out the Stars with Linda Sigmund on episode 3 of 100 Days of Mothman. I like the Point Pleasant Mothman, we'll call him that, the West Virginia, because it has a beginning, happens in the, what was the Gravediggers?
November the 13th, 1966.
What was the Gravediggers name? The Gravediggers Cohitton?
They were in Clendenin.
Clendenin, yeah. I just talked about that 2 days ago. Clendenin. And then the next day is when Scarberry and Bennett saw it, like 2 days later.
As the crow flies, I don't think it's very far. Maybe 20-minute drive from West Virginia, half an hour. I know I've probably been to Clendenin, but I have friends that just went to the cemetery and found the grave of the guy that was being buried by those grave diggers, and talked to the people, and took some video of the surrounding area, which I found very interesting, because you could almost imagine what those guys saw back then coming over those trees. And
that whole saga just starts there. And it pretty much ends at the the tragedy of the Silver Bridge. And I'm supposing there's other stuff that happened, because there was sightings after that, but it's kind of awkward to talk about. Everybody's kind of like, yeah, let's not worry about that for now. Our town is kind of destroyed for a minute. And so I could imagine, I saw Mothman. Dude, chill about Mothman for a minute, all right? And then Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove did Mothman Legacy. And I'm glad he did, because it starts off after the Silver Bridge. And so you get some extra stuff to know that it didn't just end, and it wasn't some kind of weird flash in the pan phenomenon that the locals were just coming up with. I thought your power went out. Yeah, we're summoning Mothman.
You were talking about Mothman. Now, see, that's another thing. I'm what they call a slider. Ever since, before that, I was pretty, all through my childhood, I was like that. But afterwards, it's just amped up, and I affect all kinds of electrical equipment, and lights will come and go. And,
let me ask you this: have you ever had a near-death experience?
I have astral travel, which I think is pretty much the same thing. I don't like to go under anesthesia because of it. But no, to say that I've actually knew that it was a near-death experience caused by a trauma, no. But I have met my mother, and she's been gone since '98. I've spent time with her in my dreams, and several other people and animals and things like that. So just about every aspect of as my life is just.
You've checked every box but the trauma.
Yeah. Oh, I've had trauma.
Yeah. I've noticed
We all
in
have.
doing this, like the Bigfoot podcast and the Ghost podcast and the Alien Abductee podcast, that people that have the craziest just onslaught of the sightings all have an NDE from some kind of traumas. That's why I was asking.
I think my trauma was when I had, even though I didn't understand that's what it was, because I put it in the back of my mind, is when that creature picked me up.
Yeah.
Because after I was regressed and was able to remember everything, I was okay. I have PTSD from it. And I was okay for a while, but then I just about lost it because anytime I would come across anything Mothman or anything like that, it was hard for me. And that was 2017. So I lived with it for a long time.
Yeah. Another factor caused me to ask that was you said you saw your guardian angel when you were 3 and a gray alien when you were 5. I'm like, I wonder if she had like something happen when she was born or younger than that. Cause that's.
It runs in my family. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Sylvia Brown.
Sylvia Brown?
Sylvia Brown was a well-known psychic. She's in my family tree. She's like a 6th or cousin, once or twice or 3 times removed, but she's in the Shoemakers, and that's on my grandpa's side. But my mother's was psychic. I am. My sister is, but she doesn't embrace it because it frightens her.
I think I saw a podcast on her before.
Sylvia, yeah. Her son Chris now takes it over and does readings and things. A lot of people find her controversial. I've gone to see her at a couple of places when she was in Cincinnati. Was one of them, and it was pretty interesting. She did a thing where it was like if you have a fear, she would tell you how to get rid of it. And I guess it was sort of like a self-hypnosis type of deal. She sent you into like a trance, and I had a horrible fear of flying. I mean, there was no way I was ever going to fly, ever. Now, I don't know what that came from, but it didn't bother me now. And spiders. I was afraid of spiders, and I pick them up and put them outside.
You could cover me in spiders and I wouldn't think much about it. But I can't even touch a snake's skin once it's shedded.
That's my daughter. She hates snakes. But as far as trauma, I think my life has been traumatic from the time I was little because of the experiences I've had. And my mother wouldn't talk to me about it, even though she had them too, until I was like in my 40s. And then we had some long talks. And she said that when I was born, that she had a near-death experience. And Jesus told her that she would be fine and she could see the tree of life. And she said, I saw all these people coming out of the tree of life. And she said, I saw relatives and people I didn't know, and they were all climbing out of these different limbs. And Jesus told her that I would be a special child. She said she didn't know what that meant until I got older. And, I had all these abilities. But her mother, too, was born in with a midwife, and she was born in the amniotic sac was over her face. And they call that being born with a veil over your face. And that's supposed to be a sign of, I know that's woo-woo, but that's supposed to be a sign of psychic ability. But so it was on her dad and her mom. And then my dad's side, his mother, she could tell the future, and she knew when she was going to pass away. And she had all kinds of experiences. She lived down below Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And she saw Black Panthers and what they called the hairy man. So.
Okay, so she had a Bigfoot sighting.
Yes, she did. just about 5 to 10 miles below, in Apple Grove, West Virginia, down below Point Pleasant. Also, I have found that people that many people that I've talked to that had Mothman experiences, or the children of the people that saw it, the Mothman, or had some type of experience with him, were relatives of Chief Cornstalk, and so many.
Mhm.
And he was my 7th great grandfather, and the boy that I was with was 3/4 Cherokee. So I think that Mothman came to certain people that were in that lineage. Now, I
Mhm.
can't tell you why, but I think it's supernatural of some type to keep them
Yeah.
from going down there on that bridge and in that area, because after I had that experience, it was a while before I went back down there, but I did. And that's when I saw the men in black and had the dream of the bridge falling and stuff. But I've talked to so many, even Jeff Walmsley, his
Mhm.
wife, found out she is in the Cornstalk lineage. And so is Faye DeWitt Laporte. And
Mhm.
she's the one that saw Mothman running beside the car.
Yeah, that she had the Mothman on the hood, didn't she?
Yes, she did. He
Hers.
testified. I love Faye. She's awesome.
She has a great story.
I
Now,
love her.
how did you find out you were in the Cornstalk lineage? Is that just knowing your whole life, or?
Oh, that was interesting. My grandfather, it's through them, through the shoemakers.
Is it official?
I'm sorry.
Is it official that you're in there? Is it
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
not just a rumor or anything?
No, we did my grandfather's cousin, Harriet Casto. She's also related to the shoemakers. They shared the same shoemaker clan. Grandmother, I guess. Let's see how that goes. My grandpa, Homer Casto, his mother was a shoemaker. Harriet was a niece of my great grandma shoemaker.
Mhm.
So she worked in Washington D.C. and she had the archives and different things, and she was notable over there. And she had money, and she traced a family tree. And one day she came over to see us, and she brought this information to my mother. And then I got to look, and once I got a computer and found all these people she had written down way back the lineage. The shoemakers came from Alsace, France. They came over here,
Mhm.
and Sam. Anyway, it was through some of their relatives was the Vanderpools, and it was through Catherine Vanderpool, and she was a third wife of Chief Cornstalk. And then there was Catherine Vanderpool, and then she had a daughter named Elizabeth. And Elizabeth was married to young Chief Cornstalk, which is the one they call Hard Striker. And I don't have this all down in front of me. It's just this.
You're doing fine.
So don't you know. Anyway, Elizabeth had children with young Chief Cornstalk, and then she married a shoemaker man, and then but this is my lineage through the Cornstalk kids.
That's legit then.
Yeah, and then I talked to Chief Don Wood, a Shawnee,
Mhm.
and yeah, he told about it too, and we talked about it. And he's on. You can find him on Facebook.
Oh yeah. I've done a lot of reading on the Battle of the Shawnee. I can't think Battle of Point Pleasant or whatever it's called, or how they wiped out the Shawnee and took him prisoner. That is like a prequel in and of itself of the whole thing.
My birthday is October 10th, and that battle was October 10th.
Yeah, that's how it stuck in my brain what your birthday was. You put the. It's not hard to. I bet you passed every test in school.
Well, no, I hated school.
They didn't even put when the Battle of Chief Cornstalk was on your test.
Yeah, but that was before I had all this experience. Well, I went, let's see, that I had my experience in 67, and I graduated the next year when I was 17 in May of 68. So, but I had Ohio history, and we didn't have West Virginia history. We had Ohio history. But, and not a whole lot about the Indians.
There wasn't a ton of them in your area back then. They didn't really
They
settle it.
traveled through.
Yeah.
Like I go down and I have a big arrowhead collection. I collect paleo stuff, mostly like from a couple thousand years ago.
Clovis and whatnot.
Clovis points and stuff. You'll find a lot of those near the river. But I have Clovis. A creek down here. And I have boxes upon boxes and boxes of celts and you know, grinders and things like that. But I haven't found very many arrowheads here. I've found a couple from the woodland era, because they didn't stay here. They passed through, and they stayed closer to, they had their homes closer to the river. I'm probably 5 miles, 6 miles from the Ohio River, but there's a lot of hills and stuff here. But they wanted to build, you know, right up on the banks.
Yeah.
And, but I do find stuff, but it's older stuff.
Yeah, all the ones you find around here are right on the Tennessee River. You have to get almost on the river to find them. My grandpa was obsessed with them. He's got boxes, like you said. Tomahawks. I used to want to cut a tree down with one of them tomahawks he found. He never would let me touch it.
I have a couple.
They're so cool. Let me ask you about your sighting itself. One of the UFOs that you saw, I think it was the smaller one, had a burst of bright light. Did you get conjunctivitis from that at all?
You know, people have asked me that.
Yeah,
and,
first thing I thought.
I got down on the floor when it went up over. So I think that's the only thing that saved me. Plus, I didn't get out. Even though it was close to us, all the time it was close to us, it was like an iridescent light or incandescent. What do you call them when they're, you know, those lights you flip on and they're long and they're blue and
fluorescent.
Fluorescent. I don't know if they even make those much anymore, but it was like a fluorescent light. It was blue-white, and it didn't hurt to look at it. But when that thing went from his side of the car around to the front of the car and stopped right at the hood, or at the bumper, it just sat there. And we looked in it and tried to figure out. At that point, I think we were both so numb that we weren't really all that scared until the thing started to rise up. And then it rose up, and then it went up over the car, and then's when everything was bright. And then he was like this over the steering wheel, and I was on the floor. And then after it went, and there was no sound with it ever either, I got out my side, he got out his side. And I walked around the front, and he walked around, and we met in the back. And I said, "It's gone." He said, "I know." And there was nothing. It was just real quiet.
Yeah, that portion of your story sounded just like I don't have the name in front of me, but the couple that did get the conjunctivitis, it sounded like the exact same timeline.
I was a kid back then. If I did, it didn't appear to affect me in any way other than it was like it was downloaded with something, or whatever you call it. Because when we went across the bridge after we had our encounter, for him to take me home, we went across the Pomeroy Mason Bridge. I said, "I feel funny." He said, "I do too." He said, "How do you feel?" I said, like somebody went in my brain and swept
Mhm.
it out and put something in there. So I feel the same way. I didn't know we didn't have computers back then, or I would have said I felt like they put something in my mind or uploaded, you know. And after that, uh, that's when the things started really happening. The dreams and hearing the kids in school and um,
Mhm.
hearing the thoughts and feeling all those emotions. That my senior year was tough because I couldn't hardly go to school. I just I couldn't be around all that. Imagine, you know,
Mhm.
teenagers anyway. Oh gee,
Yeah, I can't
oh
imagine
gee.
that.
It was a hard year.
Now, you had the what was I going to ask? I was thinking about how hard it would be to be a teenager. That um, you had the missing time,
Mhm.
and then you had the regression, and you went back and found out you were outside on the quilt. Your boyfriend's over here, and you got put in the car. He got taken out. Did anything else happen? You know, you were at the foot of the Mothman. Did anything else happen that you remembered after that
Um,
for 30 minutes? I mean, that was just a little short time.
there, my therapist was. She retired in 2019 or 2020. The woman I went to Circleville, she did this. This is what she did was regression and help therapy, you know.
Hmm.
And she said, "I want you to come back." And I said, "Right now I can't because I had too much on my mind with it." And she said, "Promise me you'll come back." And I said, "Give me a little bit to, to get to think about this and get used to the idea of what happened to me because I could remember. It wasn't that it was something that was implanted. You
Hmm.
can watch that regression. It's online. You could probably find it.
Hmm.
And anyway, she said, I would like you to come back. And I said, I won't tell you no. And then she retired and I lost contact. But I would now probably because I remember when I could remember feeling cool air. I could see the dark. I could see everything. I thought, oh, nobody's going to hypnotize me. I'm not be able to do that. You know, what it was just I could remember it. There was like a block there, and it was like it was lifted. But I got to a certain point that I was frantic, so she had to bring me out. And she said, "I think that you had a lot more happen to you than what you thought." And
Hmm.
I got to thinking about it. You know, why would they even bother coming over there to us? Um, he was such a handsome young guy, real dark eyes, and I wasn't a bad looking kid. And I thought, they probably got DNA, and it's hard to tell. And
Very Barney and Betty Hill reminiscent.
yes,
That's the first thing I thought of when I read that particular part. Is it reminded me just like Barney and Betty.
yeah, and it's in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Is that right?
Oh, them? I have to look.
I think so.
I haven't been
But
obsessed with that phenomenon this year like I have this one.
but when I could he got a quilt from his grandma because his birthday was
Hmm.
oh dear, are you ready for this? 75 years ago today.
Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
is he still alive with us?
I think he's had so many heart problems and stuff. Lives in Columbus. 75 years ago
Wow,
today.
today
Today.
that happened today or
Well,
75
it
years
was
ago
his
today?
birthday. His
Oh,
birthday.
okay,
His birthday.
okay.
So that happened in the second week in April. I think it was after that. And his grandma Smith had got him a quilt. She made him one, and he had it in the back of his car. So when we pulled in there, and he got the quilt, and he put it out on the hood of the car, it was warm, and it was getting dark, and we were just laying there against the glass of the car. He had a
Mhm.
'56 Chevy, and just he kept looking over to his right, and I said, "What are you looking at?" He said, "That star over there. Look at it." I said, that doesn't look right. And then, of course, it burst through the clouds like a supernova. Just bang, here it comes.
Like, why is it getting bigger?
Yeah, it got bigger. And it was closer than what I thought. Because when you see something big like that, you think full moon, you know.
Mhm.
So I thought it was way over there, but it wasn't. It was less than a football field from us. Probably about a football field. And then it started moving, and then it came over to us and came over top of us. And we were just laying there, you know, and the next thing I know, he's gone. And I remember sliding on that quilt trying to get off the front. And I burnt my leg on the grill of that Chevy. I can remember, I felt it when I was hypnotized. I felt that hotness on the back of my leg, you know. And I just slipped right down on the ground onto the pair of big feet. And I can remember I just sort of fell forward and kind of leaned up, looked up, and all I could see was legs, you know. And I went back a little bit, and I still couldn't see it because it was so tall. And next thing I remember, it picking me up, but it was very gentle. But I remember it felt cold. Its skin was like snake.
Mhm.
And I didn't see any feathers, and I didn't see any big red eyes. Of course, I never really looked it right in the face because I didn't want to. So I didn't know what the heck had hold of me.
But it did have wings, didn't it?
Yes, it had wings,
When you were on
but they were down.
Yeah.
But its arms were attached to the wings like a bat. Its arms were loose.
Yeah, like regular arms.
Yeah, arms and fingers. It had fingers like we do, long fingers. I know it had me like by one. I only weighed I weighed less than 100 pounds. I was little. And it got me and held me and opened that car door. It was open, but he was just sitting in there in some kind of state. And I can still remember that car door opening, and the window was down, and it opened that car door and pulled him out, and he just stood there, and he just put me in, you know, and I crawled across because it was a bench seat, and I thought I was just, well, you know, I was dumbfounded. And then he got in, and when the car door went bang, I remember it sort of startled me, and I looked up and looked at him, and he was just still in that state. And over to the left of the front fender there stood that creature. So I got a good look at it from the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up at the UFO. It was still there. And he said, "We got to get out of here." And he tried to start the car, and he finally got it going. We started pulling forward. And that creature, I don't know why I didn't see it, but I don't know if he was just tall enough that he couldn't. But it went from the bumper at the left part of the car up over and up into the trees across the road in one swoop. I mean, it didn't flap its wings. It didn't make any noise. It just put its arms back like Superman, and out it went.
The not flapping thing is crazy to me because nobody ever reports it flapping.
Somebody said to me, "Oh, maybe it had some kind of backpack." I was like, "Nope." It was a man-shaped creature with a head and wings. It just put them back. They were down, but then he put them out and back, and it just went. It was gone. And I said, "Oh my God, did you see it?" And we were going forward, and as we left, the UFO was going too, and it went straight. And then when we got out to the road that we came in on, which was we were facing it, we made a sharp left, and rocks were just flying everywhere.
I bet.
And
I would
I
have.
said, look at it, look at it, look at it, look at it. And he's like, I'm trying to get us out of here. I see it. And I said, you don't see it? And he said, it's a UFO. And I said, no, it's a creature. It's that Mothman. It's that Birdman's what I
Mhm.
called it. And he said,
Dorito.
I don't see any Birdman. Down over the hill he went. And I looked out, and it was sitting in those trees across the road. It's like, oh, shit.
Now, part of that was from your regression. The other part's from stuff you actually remembered happening. Do you remember
That
either part?
always remember. That
Yeah.
always remember. The only part of the regression was how I got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
All
Did
that
the-
other stuff I knew.
Does it feel different to remember the part that's regression now than it was to remember the part you actually experienced real time?
It all feels the same, like it all happened, and
Yeah.
But
It all came together.
all came together. But I know in my heart there's more.
Yeah, I'd say there was, because you just didn't end up with that weird feeling for nothing.
That summer, I wasn't well. Wasn't well after that. All that fall, I missed a lot of school. Part of it was trauma.
Mm.
Part of it, I talked to my mom and dad about it, and they're like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. That generation.
Yep.
People will come around here. You tell people, and they'll come around here, and we'll have the FBI over here, and that man that's snooping around down there, a government man, he'll be up here. And my dad didn't want any,
Oh.
And so I minded what he said for the most part.
He probably didn't. That probably wasn't bad advice as far as what we know now.
Because we lived right in town,
Did they ever come to your house, the Men in Black?
No,
Or are you just the ones you saw going shopping?
I just saw those down at Point Pleasant. No, nobody ever bothered me because I kept my mouth shut. But kids just teased me. Linda's witch, Linda's witch, Linda's witch, and I was real quiet. And
They called you a witch?
Call me a witch, Linda's witch. 'Cause, yeah, imagine.
Like you're the only person that didn't see it. That's.
I know.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not. It was Point Pleasant in '67. Everyone's a witch. If you weren't a witch, I would say they were the ones that were being bastardized. If they weren't a
They
witch,
were. They were
you're
terrible.
not a witch. How about
They
you're
were
not a witch, you weirdo, you muggle?
Yeah, I tell them now, boy, it's that thing. If you could go back now, oh man, can you imagine? If I could go back now, I'd be on that ship with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I would.
You'd go to Linalos or whatever it's called.
I'd go to Linalos, yes.
With Woody and the gang.
Speaking of him, my ex-husband, that was his cousin.
Did you ever meet him?
No, but his other cousins, my ex-husband's other cousins that were cousins with Woody, they would go to the reunions, and they said that he was adamant that he saw that thing. And it's strange too, where Woodrow Durenberger saw I can't think of his name is right off.
Indrid?
Indrid Cold is I live real close to where that happened. The interstate's only about 5 miles from me.
Mm-hmm. And the way you described the UFO, one or two of them, it reminded me of Indrid Cole's craft that Woody saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
It
started
was
thinking,
big though. This one, the first one was giant. Now the second one, it was only about the size of a Volkswagen
yeah, the second one
Beetle.
reminded me of Indrid's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all the same
Yeah.
creatures.
Same
My grandma
bunch.
saw them. My grandpa saw those smaller ones. All their neighbors saw them. And I didn't know it till years later that the neighbors all saw them when I talked to my grandmother and grandfather's neighbor's daughter. I saw her in the hospital in the 90s when I took my mom down there for some treatments. And I got to talking to her, and I said, your mom and dad saw those UFOs in the 60s. She said, yeah, she saw it too. And I said, they said it was, all down through there. And she said, yeah, almost everybody that lived on Route 7 from the fairgrounds in Pomeroy out to the river saw them. You could set your clock by them, 3 o'clock every morning. Some people would go out and sit and watch those things go down Route 7 and go out to the river and go upriver and then come back and either go back out the way they came. Now, where they were going from there, I don't know, or they go towards Point Pleasant. So
I made the comment that I don't know why the place wasn't swarmed by the military like at the end of that movie E.T. As much activity as you could depend on happening back then.
I know.
Unless they knew about it.
They knew about it, I think, and they wanted to keep it quiet. I think that there were, I know this is hearsay, but I know from some reputable sources that there are tunnels from the TNT area to where the bridge was, where they used to move the TNT and the bomb stuff that they made to put in bombs through those tunnels to the bridge, to the boats, and then they'd move them up or down river to wherever they were supposed to be. And I don't think that because of the Cold War, I don't think that our government wanted anybody messing around enough to wonder why they were down there, because they would find out that I think that stuff, was still stored down under there. I've heard of people being in those tunnels within the past maybe, I don't know, 25 years maybe, and saying that there's still creatures and different weird things going on in those tunnels. Now, I've been in the igloos, but these were tunnels that went from the old TNT plant to underground to the river, which wasn't that far away. 2 miles, maybe.
It's not beyond the government to do something like that. I mean, if you look at Montauk, it's the same sort of scenario. One of the most interesting parts about your sighting, which makes it, as of today, one of my favorite sightings, even though it's reminiscent of all the other ones with the car chase and missing time. It's very, very textbook. But the fact that your family saw it happen at a bird's eye or an aerial view while it was happening, that's insane. Yes. That's
Isn't
crazy.
That amazing?
They all saw it happen.
That white one, the small one that went up over top of us, it just kept going over top of I call it a mountain.
Yeah.
And then it rose up over top of that mountain, which was across the river from where my mom and dad were sitting on the front porch. And they saw it, the very one that we saw, come up over the mountain and turn to their left and go, just barely made it over the bridge. My dad said that. Yeah.
I love these maps.
That's all from my head. So
no, this is my favorite part of the book.
Oh,
it shows like what exactly happened. Like, look at Grandma's house up there at the top, and your house is down here by my hand. But imagine, like, I know how it looks to look out because it's kind of similar terrain around here with the smaller mountains.
Yeah,
I can imagine what it would look like to see, like, well, what the hell is that?
That's just exactly what he said.
And because my grandma lived 3 miles from us too.
Yeah.
And so it's like they see it here.
Yeah.
You get home, you think you're in trouble, and all of a sudden, y'all see them UFOs?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh, what I do now? He knew. He knew we were out there sitting in the dark.
Yeah, I didn't know where the book was going when you said the guy he got the quilt out. I'm like, oh, what kind of book is this? What's about to happen? It's some kind of Danielle Steele novel I'm about to read.
Oh, yeah. Lady Chatterley's lover.
Yeah. Like, what was the pale moonlight?
No.
What did they say about the missing time? Like, did you compare notes?
Me and him, you mean? I couldn't get him to talk about it.
No, I mean, like when you got home, what did they say
I couldn't get them to talk to me much about it either. I can just remember that I left at 7:15 and it was almost 9 when I got back. And, it wasn't long that we were out there at that place before it started getting dark, and we saw it, come the big one. And then we went down over the hill and sat down there for, just less than 10 minutes. And here came the small one. And then it went up over us. And then we went across the bridge and we went up to Pomeroy, which is right along the river, and sat and looked over towards his house, which was right on the other side of the Ohio River, and looked across the hill and saw some white lights. And then we went home, and it was what, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and it's like, what happened to that time? You know, where we were from where I lived real close to the Pomeroy Mason Bridge, which
Mhm.
probably took 6 or 7 minutes to get to where we were parked on that hill across the river. And if we were over there, say 15 minutes, that's just a little over 20 minutes. And then what happened all that time after that thing was on top of us?
Yeah.
Because it came almost immediately. And we went right down over the hill, which was a quarter of a mile.
Everything seems so 5 minutes away, and you lost
Yeah.
it, and you took 2 hours. I guess
That's just
it's got to be noticeable.
There was at least a half an hour. I would say half an hour, 45 minutes. I mean, it had to have been, because we didn't waste any time going home, really, after,
Mm-mm.
went across the bridge and just drove up to Pomeroy and then back down and to my house, which was 2 miles, because I used to walk that sometimes from
Mhm.
school, because I wanted to, I wanted just to get out of that place. So, but I walked home a lot.
Now you only saw the quote unquote Mothman with the first craft. Nothing with the
Yeah.
second. Nothing with the smaller one.
No, but I felt like that thing was alive.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that. My boyfriend and I talked about that. It seemed like I didn't know the word entity. I'm sure I'd heard it, but I didn't know how to
Mhm.
put that into context. It felt like if it could have, it would have spoke to us. And because the thing that I gathered from all this is the lack of fear. I wasn't really afraid, even when that thing was right over top of us, and when I fell on that thing's feet, and when it picked me up and put me in the car, I still was hanging out of the car window trying to see what I could see,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to go back up over the hill and find it again. I wasn't afraid, and I was more like euphoric. It was like when
Mm-hmm.
a couple summers ago I went to see the Grand Canyon, and I was amazed. I mean, I'd always seen it on TV and things, but to see that thing in person, you're in awe. You're spellbound. And I think that is how I felt when I saw that creature. It's
You don't
like
have
they
ADHD,
are
do you?
real. I'm sorry?
Do you have ADHD?
Oh, I probably do.
I was thinking because the few times I had a real paranormal experience, I wasn't scared at all either. Like I was in like I was solving a puzzle almost, and I always thought I'd be freaking out. But
No, I'm not afraid of anything.
they say that ADHD people think slower in situations like that, so maybe your fear wasn't there.
No, I'm sure I do. I think I'm above average intelligence. Um, I've always scored well on tests and things, and things were easy for
Mhm.
me. But I'm one of those type of people that I didn't really apply myself as much as I could have.
Same.
You know what I mean?
I'm regretting that
And
in my 40s.
but I'm an artist, and I paint. Now I paint Bigfoot and a Mothman, and
Oh yeah. How did the appearance of the creature, the Mothman, compare to Bigfoot? Appearance wise, maybe smell
oh,
wise.
did you see the picture in my book?
Yeah, I did. At
And
the
doesn't that
field.
look like a Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like very similar.
I drew that on the way home on a piece of paper that was in the glove compartment. I said, I have a picture in my head of what that thing looked like. And see how little I am.
Yeah, the way you described it as being 10 feet tall with the giant feet and everything. I'm like, I wonder if they're not some derivative or relative or something like that.
I think so. The one that I saw out here, I saw one Bigfoot. That's it. See, spirits,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff, animals, ghosts, Bigfoot, all kinds of creatures um, are attracted to me and me to them. But I think they're all from the same realm. Uh, that's why the Bigfoot out here, I can't say definitively that yes, it's a Bigfoot, but I know what I saw, and I know what I've collected and researched since 2017. My next book's going to be Bigfoot. Um,
That'll be
I've
cool.
been-
I didn't know that Mark Randall helped you with this book.
yes,
That's
he's
the
wonderful, man.
Steve Ward book too. I didn't.
Yeah, Mark helps a lot of people. He's quite the digital creator.
Hey, the Steve Ward book is the Cliff Notes to the Point Pleasant.
Yes.
This is like the notes on it.
Yes, yes. The big red eyes. Or as what's her name? She says the big red eyes. I loved it. Faye DeWitt, Laporte. All I can remember was those big red eyes. I love her.
Have you ever seen her on the Mysteries Decoded on the CW, where they interview her for the Mothman? She does it on. That's one of her better interviews I found.
No, but I've seen just about all of them. Plus, I talked to her personally.
Yeah, so you know her. So
yeah, we spent the day together down there at the festival for 2 days
I may
last
make
year.
it up there. I may make it up.
Oh,
there.
you have to go. It's so much fun. It's family friendly too, you know. And there's music and food and
Well, I'm starting this this podcast series 100 days before the festival. It's going to be called 100 Days of Mothman.
so awesome.
To kind of lead the hype up, you know, whether I go or not. It's 8 hours away.
You have to go. Well, you come here and stay. You're always welcome. Yeah, you
stay
can
at
crash
the-
here.
They closed that hotel, didn't they? The Low.
Somebody bought it. They did close it, but someone bought it, and we're hoping that they'll open it up. I don't know if they'll open it up to customers or just to, to have people come in. But there's lots of. There's bed and breakfast not too far from me. And like I said, we have a big house.
Now that's where supposedly, Richard Gere character that's supposed to be John Keel stayed when he was there, wasn't it? The Low.
I think he stayed over in Gallipolis.
Across the river.
Across the river in a little hotel over there. He may at one time or another been at the Low Hotel, but I can't remember the name. It's been a while since I've read the book. I'm going to have to read it again. That book.
That's where John Keel stayed. I meant like for Richard Gere's character. I think.
Oh,
yeah.
In the movie, he did.
That's where Connie took him.
Yeah.
AKA Miss.
Yeah,
Miss
Connie
Blair.
took him there, but John Keel stayed over in Gallup.
Yeah, he stayed everywhere. That dude.
Yeah.
I wish I had his travel budget.
Oh, my. Yeah, they were in those hills not too far from where my grandma lived when she grew up.
That was one of the
dad's
examples. That was one of the examples. Is he would go up those hills every night and see that stuff y'all were seeing, and I was like, why is the military not swarming this coverage every night?
Just because we're Hicks.
Yeah. And they tells me they knew about it.
They knew, of course they did. Like I said, they had things going on down there that they didn't want people to know. They didn't want to draw any more attention to it. And I don't think the military had anything to do at all with the bridge collapsing.
No,
I just think that it just happened.
No, I don't think Mothman did either. I don't know if the two.
Oh, I think it was related, but I think that Mothman was there to keep people from being on it.
Yeah, he wasn't like the cause of it.
Oh, that night that I went across, it was 2 weeks before it fell. And my thoughts were, I shouldn't be on this thing. I shouldn't. And it swung just like a swing, back and forth. And I can remember looking in the river and seeing the lights. And I remember, that's the thing about my brain. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember things so vividly in my mind.
Did you know that Mary Hire and everybody else was having the same dreams, or did you find that out after the fact about the presence and the tragedy?
I read the book. I was shocked.
Oh, the John Keel book, and you found that out?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was shocked. And then there was the movie, and they showed it pretty much like I saw in my dream. There were other people too that had that dream. Lots of people.
Yeah, there was dozens from what I hear, from what I remember.
I don't know whether Faye had it or not. I'll have to ask her.
Mary Hire had it, and at least two others that John Keel knew.
Oh, there was a bunch.
And Sheriff Connie's character was Mary Hire.
Yeah.
For like, well, she was 4 or 5 put in. They did a lot of consolidation.
That
book was all over the place.
It was sensationalized to make a movie, but that's okay too. It was an interesting movie, and there were some real parts in it.
They did a good job of encapsulating the story and making it palpable for the least common public. The one thing I would change, and I even heard John Keel liked it. Steve Ward told me John Keel liked it. The movie said it did a good job. One thing I didn't like was how they took Gordon, what his name was, which was Woody. And they kind of made him seem like a crazy person because he wasn't. Woody was a blue collar guy that down to earth, and they made Gordy sound like he was insane.
I think it was a shoe salesman one year. He
I'd have to look at it. But
he
killed himself in the woods. Why did he do that?
No.
Gordy didn't do that, or Woody didn't do that.
Woody didn't do that. He died of it. No, and his daughter just passed away here a couple years ago, and but she held on to what her dad said, that it was all true, and they had contact up until Woody died, and then afterwards, and so
it'd be a hell of a something to make up, though, if he did. I mean, that's a cinematic universe.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, why would he? A lot of that stuff, like, what's his name? Todd Urey. He's the one that saw it above his head. Who was the one? Tad. Who was Tad that saw the thing on the road, and he came back home and there was a letter on his door saying, "We know what you saw. Quit talking about it."
I can't remember.
There's a Tad and a Todd, and there's a Connie, and there's like 7 Connies. Everybody's name's Connie. If Connie or Bennett, there was Scarberry and Bennett. They saw they had the TNT.
Linda Scarberry, Malay.
Who was the one that Mallet? Mallet's the one that saw the thing in the yard holding the baby.
Yes, and she dropped the baby.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a crazy story.
But the baby's probably screaming and squirming, and I don't think it was a newborn baby,
Like
but it tried to get in the house. Now, I had Bigfoot out here that tried to get in my house one night, and my son was here and my granddaughter, and we both experienced a night of siege.
Really?
Well, it was in March 2 years ago, and they pounded on every area of this house, and these windows, it's like a tri-level, and these windows go clear to the ground, and then there's about 20 feet down below them. Something was knocking on these windows in the back of the house here, and that it would have had to have been 10, 15 feet tall, and we'd go out and look and be gone. But they would just like boom, 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 till like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it finally stopped.
Now, around that time, like the 66, 67 time frame, how was the Bigfoot sighting activity around Point Pleasant? I know John Keel mentioned it in passing. I was like, is it like in the outskirts? Was it like a lot and like no one just talked about it?
I don't remember hearing much about it until Patty, Patty, and that was afterwards.
I go back and forth on that one because it doesn't match any other stuff we're hearing now.
Yeah,
but it's fun. It's a fun subject to look at.
But the only time I ever heard about it, I heard it was called the Hairy Man, and that was right down below Point Pleasant. And my grandpa, great grandpa, Hambrick.
What?
He rode a horse.
Y'all are Hambricks?
Uh-huh.
My mom's maiden name's Hambrick. Are we related?
Synchronicity. Oh, well, I imagine we probably are.
I got a Papaw Hambrick too.
Yeah. John was his name.
Wow. Okay.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? So you have to go to the Hambrick. if you come down and go to the Mothman Festival, I'll take you to the Hambrick Cemetery because it's not very far.
Oh, now I've got to.
And that's where where she saw the hairy man. And my grandpa used to deliver the mail on horseback, and he wouldn't let them go out at night because of the hairy man.
You say
And
John
I asked,
Hambrick?
and her name was Luna, the moon. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Hambrick.
Same spelling.
What do you think of that? See, that's called synchronicity. I
Mhm.
don't believe in coincidences. I think we were supposed to meet.
That was your grandpa?
That was my grandma. My dad's mother was a Hambrick.
I know I traced them just from the free version of Ancestry.com or whatever. That
I thought you'll find John and
it was like 4 or 5 generations they were in Virginia, and then they've been in Alabama and southern Tennessee since like the 1800s. So they probably same bunch.
Yeah. And what was your grandpa's first name?
His first name was Elmer, but he went by Jack.
Jack. I'll see if we aren't somewhere on the same tree, but I bet we are.
Grady was his dad's name.
Grady. Okay.
It's crazy. It's Hambrick. It's like a Scottish thing, so it's like Smith. But here's a funny thing that happens around. Here's a funny thing that happens around here with Hambricks is a lot of there's a big African American clan of Hambricks, which means they took our last name.
Yep.
A long time ago when something happened. But it's weird because my daughter had a daycare teacher whose last name was Hambrick. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
There's a lot of them. The reason I spelled it is because there's some called hammock.
Yeah.
Or Hamrick. Hamrick. But they are Hambrick. That's amazing.
Wild.
Now
I got chills.
Well, see, that's glory bumps.
Yep. I like them. I enjoy it. I've been into angel numbers and stuff lately.
Good.
So it doesn't shock me. I got something big coming out and just don't know what it is.
What's the number 212 have to do with anything?
212? I don't know about 212.
Well, you keep watch out for that number, okay?
I have a multiple of 12 something that might mean 12 that I remember, but
okay.
Probably 212.
212. I don't know if it's a birthday, whether it's a time but I got a 212 around you. That's another thing I read people. I'll see people out in the grocery store and my daughter will sit, look in my face, and she used to say, "Oh, please, Mom, don't embarrass me." And I'd say, "Just go look at the clothes or something."
Stop reading people's auras.
We went to Bimini one year, and I read a bunch of people that were down there, and I had a whole line in this. We were in this one area in the hotel, and the girls were playing pool, and I was sitting on the couch, and someone said something about me reading people. There was a line clear out the door and down the street, and there's all kinds of guys. They were crying. Man, they were crying. They were buying us drinks. It was like, okay.
Was it like when Tim Allen was the Santa Claus and all those kids were in the park?
It was like that.
All the kids are lined up.
Yep.
That's cool.
It's like Bad Santa.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
If you took the main angel number I see, it's 12 divided by 2. Plus that it's.
Or if you had 2 and 1 and 2,
like
5, you get 5.
626 and 262 are big angel numbers for me.
Okay,
so 212 is not far off.
Okay.
All my grandparents had 62 in their phone numbers, and so does my wife. So it's kind of like I was like, oh wow, really? I didn't even notice that until years later.
Numerology is amazing. Yeah.
It's been a great time. I'm glad you came on here.
It's been fun.
This hour and a half passed quick.
Oh, are you kidding?
You lost time again.
Yep, I did.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Hopefully, I can
Oh,
get up there and meet everybody.
Yep.
This
Like I
spring.
said, if you guys don't have any place to stay, just let me know around Mothman time. And,
We can always stay up there in Huntington. Drive 40 minutes. Stay at a Days Inn.
I'm about that far, about 45. But we just go down and get down through Ravenswood. That's not too far that way. You can find me on Google Earth.
One of my next projects is I want to do like a deep dive on the Appalachians, history, lore, and history, folklore, and actual stories. And I'm gonna have to get funding to do it, but I'm gonna have to work on it because it sounds like I start digging deep and it just opens up. It's just like,
yeah,
it's like digging in sand. There's another layer every time you go. Like, what in the world?
Yeah. Just drive around down here and you can find all kinds of history. You've got Blennerhassett Island and where Aaron Burr and Harlem Blennerhassett tried to take the government over and make their own government west of the
I forgot about that.
Alleghenies. Oh gee, there's a lot of pretty places down here by the river.